You motherfucker. You did it to me again. You bastard.
Burned you again, Jest.
You love to fuck with my emotions. We started this playthrough. We did what I thought was a really fun conversation. I thought it was successful, and even the David Cage haters out there, shout out to Dodagus, were like, engaged in the conversation. So whether or not some people who may have played this game like it, I really liked it. Some people may not like it, but in any case, the issues that are presented here are some that inspire some great conversation. However, along the way, listening to Dodagus and also listening to the influence of your brother Whacker, who has been on our show various times. He was the original intern, and actually our only intern so far. They basically scared you off of buying this game because they were just telling you you're going to be pissed off, your money's not going to be well spent, whatever. So then what happened? I thought this project was dead. I was like, he's never getting this game, so this is a dead project. And I was like, what a shame. I even deleted the game from my PlayStation.
Right. So long story short, really what happened was that I was more being basically I was not necessarily scared away by them, because we had talked about it definitely in the last show early on in our discussion part. We had actually discussed it. I was like, hey, there's kind of some back and forth on David Cage, and I even specifically myself pointed out, and it's a big part of that conversation, is that I played that one game, what's it called, the Beyond Two Souls, and I thought that game was garbage, which is his most recent game prior to this. So a couple of those things were already kind of previous knowledge, obviously, to me, but I did enjoy the first chapter. I think really my original thought was because in my head I had got suckered into this idea that we would be able to do the share play thing, right? So I thought, this is a great idea, and I don't have to spend fucking money on it right after I just bought Spider-Man and I'm about to buy Red Dead Redemption 2 and all this shit. And then when all of a sudden we couldn't do it that way, I had been like, well, I'm just going to borrow this game if I can, or I'll rent it or some shit like that, or whatever, right? And very quickly then I immediately realized, I was like, oh, that's right, it's fucking 2018 and nobody fucking borrows games anymore, and where the fuck am I going to rent a fucking game? Like, I'm not going to go to the Blockbuster down the block, right, and pick it up. So I was like...
Do you still use GameFly? I know you had a subscription to it at one point.
I did have it for a while. I actually don't use it anymore because they definitely got to a point where it was like, you're paying them money for essentially like any good game that you would want, anything that comes out, it would just immediately, like the day it comes out, it would say like, it's not available, like it's low availability and maybe you'll get it. So you'd have to end up adding shitty games to your queue to get them to finally decide to send you one of the other like games that you eventually want, So you're adding games that you just don't give a fuck about just so you can fill up the queue while those other games are ready. And so I was just like, this is a waste of money. So I got rid of that thing probably about 2 years ago, something like that, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Long story short, my options became limited, and then what happened was the game actually had just an overall weird random price cut. Like the day we talked about whether or not I should buy it, it went from full price down to $35 fucking dollars. And so I was just like, well, now it's become kind of fucking fate, I guess. Like, if God is stepping in and telling me it's probably time for me to fucking get this game, because if you were complaining about buying it at $60, is $35 okay? So I guess, God, you talked me into it. So I went on fucking Amazon and I was like, all right, let's do this. So I got it. I picked it up. I had been actually waiting, as I told you. It was kind of going to be my grand unveiling was going to be during our podcast. And I was going to actually, like, while we were recording, pull it out and tell you, hey, check it out, like, show you on the fucking Skype screen that I got it and we were going to be able to play it. But because we are fucking incapable of doing a podcast that is not 15 hours long, like, we're like already on part 4 of fucking our podcast, and we had like, by the time we were going to get to that and anyone was going to actually hear that segment, I was like, fuck it, let's actually hold off on doing that tonight, saying that when we record, and let's just actually just start fucking recording and doing a podcast or getting a show out there. So that's where all this came down. So boom, here it is. I got it. I pulled it off for you, son.
hit me up with a text with a picture of the game, and I was like, yeah! Ran to my PlayStation, turned that shit on. It's back on, motherfuckers. We even decided to name these like Man Cave. We figured Man Cave Playthrough is too generic of a fucking title, so we're gonna call these Ready Player 2 whenever we're playing any of these video games. Of course, it's a throwback. Well, it's an homage to the old saying Ready Player 1, which they made a movie about.
Right.
But what did you say was important about Ready Player 2? It's the significance.
Right. The significance to us is, if you are familiar at all with our show, we do specifically have we have a ongoing third mic character within our show that is the Man Cave Computer, and she's kind of the original AI as far as we're concerned. She has been a huge part of.
I'd like to imagine
us.
she looks like this lady.
She is. I'm guessing she's a model ST200, just like this lady just told us she is. So, yeah, we are okay. Relax. It's okay. She really keeps asking us. She wants us to make sure that we're okay. She keeps questioning why we're not pressing continue yet. So, thank you, Man Cave Computer.
It's very, very
God
woman-like.
damn it.
It's like a real woman.
This is like Westworld. She's already being annoying to me. So anyway, the entire thing, that we thought with the Man Cave Computer is that we have in the intro, like, the Man Cave Computer basically says, like, we initiate the podcast and there's kind of a whole big process. And so in my head, I just always imagine that anytime we're ever going to do one of these playthroughs, when player 1 is ready, that doesn't mean shit, because that's just us playing by ourselves, like sad elderly men who should not be playing video games by ourselves. But once Ready Player 2 occurs, right? Once that second player jumps in, now it's fucking party, and now we're about to do a fucking playthrough together. So it cannot be initiated until you have player 2 ready to go. So we assume, welcome Ready Player 2. That's what this show will be from now on, at least for the time being, unless, everyone fucking hates it and berates us until we change it to something else. But for right now, fuck you, we like it, so we're going to stick with welcome to Ready Player 2. Yep.
And we're calling this Detroit series, as always, like we named the first one right off the bat. This is the Road to Jericho, and you'll see why that has significance.
Yes.
All right, so without further ado, we don't want to keep this lady waiting because she seems to be getting more and more pissed off. So
we do want to keep her for one more thing, because as any shitty guy will ever do to a woman, we will always say, as much as I like you, lady, I really like my beer a lot. I'm not saying more, but let's say it's like a 1A, like that kind of a thing. And as we've established in this show, whether it is us doing a podcast or it is us doing a playthrough or it is us just hanging out when there's no cameras rolling, almost all the time that entails to some degree large or very large amounts of alcohol. So that is what we like to call our beer of the show. So Jess, let me kick it over to you. What will you be drinking during this playthrough of Detroit Become Human?
Just because this reminds me of happy times.
Yes.
I went on a really fun vacation to the Bahamas with my wife, and I saved some beer from there. It's called Calic. It's their Calic Gold version, and that is the #1 beer in the Bahamas. Calic, they always refer to it.
Yep.
And I got the extra strong version. It's called. Actually, their title is Beer of the Bahamas. Calic, Kalik, and it's 7% alcohol. So, like we would say, Bud is the one that, everybody just kind of drinks generically out of the fridge. This is their version of it, but it's at least 2% stronger. Somewhere
there you go.
That.
And I have had that too. It's actually surprisingly good for like a generic. Yeah, when we went to the Bahamas, that's like the everywhere you go, they're like super excited to, give you some. However, I thought it was Kalik, but if it's Calic, which
Kalik,
is,
you're right.
Okay.
No, you're great. Probably Kalik.
Okay, yeah,
I don't remember.
Hey, whatever. We're not questioning.
For most of my stay there. So
exactly.
I don't remember when.
Exactly. What it matters is that it's beer. That's all that matters. So we are. That's a pretty cool. Especially when it's starting to get cold here, because it was windy as fuck today. So, to have something that reminds you of being on an island is not a bad deal as we're getting closer to straight up winter. So for my drink, I'm going to give a bit of a shout out into our Discord room, which if you have not been in there recently, we have a Discord server, our Live Man Cave, the Live from the Man Cave Discord server, where we have kind of all things that we're doing right now. It's a little bit of everything. We talk about. We have rooms for the podcast. We have channels for the for stuff like this with the game, with the gaming and the Ready Player 2 part. We have stuff on the beers that we're drinking, and so we do have one of our biggest threads, actually, one of our most readily used thread is our beers that people are currently drinking. It's become almost a bit of a beer, like a beer porn, right? Of everyone saying like, look what I'm drinking that you're not, motherfuckers. So we just had earlier today a good friend of the show in there, our boy Hez, had just dropped in there that he is over at Mere Twin Brewing, and at his at the tap house there, he was having You, Me, and Mr. PB, which is a chocolate peanut butter milk stout. And so that sounded amazing.
So good.
It sounds so good. It looks amazing. I mean, I had told him, like, I wrote in, I asked for his review because I said, literally, I mean, peanut butter is one of my favorite things in candy and ice cream, whatever it is. And I also love it in beer when it's done well. When it's done poorly, it sucks. So it's kind of an up and down, right? You're like taking a shot. You're taking a bit of a gamble. And so he had written that he gave it a straight up, like he said, it was, he had moved into other stuff and he kept coming back to that one and gave it a 9 out of 10. So again, thank you very much for jogging my memory, Hez, and for giving me the idea, because what I ended up jumping on was if you guys have ever heard of the brewery called The Brewery, Bruery. So these guys are they are pretty much all they make are bombers. So they make the big bomber bottles, and they're all kind of like crazy mixes of things that range anywhere from, like, you can get like a $9 to $10 bottle all the way up to like a $20, $30, $40 bomber bottle. I mean, as some of their more crazy stuff. But this one is actually called, oh, and by the way, these guys are out in Orange County, California. So this one is called Out of the Lunchbox, and it is an ale brewed with lactose with peanut flour, boysenberries, and salt added. And it says, what's better than splitting a PB&J sandwich with your favorite buddy over lunch? How about sharing this PB&J inspired beer instead? So I have no idea how this is going to fucking taste. I've never had it before, but I had gotten it specifically because I got all excited about the peanut butter beer that I had heard about earlier today, so I decided why not? This looked crazy. It is 7.3% ABV. So we are about to check this bad boy out, but it does say this special treat was prepared on the clock, inspired by our favorite flavors found in a classic PB&J sandwich. We use special malts to mimic the chewy breadiness, boysenberries for the jam, a dash of salt, and plenty of creamy, peanutty character. Here's to drinking outside the box. Cheers. So,
can you give me the name of the beer again?
Yeah, it's called Out of the Lunchbox. And actually, if you take a look at the front, the label is made to look like a piece of bread with, you can see kind of peanut butter and like a purple edge around it, like as if it's like the jam or the jelly kind of like coming off the side. It's a pretty cool label. They did a pretty solid job on that. So I'm about to crack this boy open and let you know how this tastes. This could go wrong terribly, but we're about to find out. All right.
While you're doing that, I'll
it smells amazing.
Kalik Gold is not anything super special. It's like in the Budweiser kind of realm of stuff.
Right.
It's definitely more islandy, but it is stronger and it is better than Budweiser and the fucking basically piss water that Budweiser is. So
absolutely.
I mean, if in a pinch, this will do the trick. But I'm not really like, oh, gotta get more of that Kalik.
Right.
But if I'm out in the Bahamas, this is something to, cheap and enjoy it. Yeah, why not?
Right. And that was actually the thing about it that I remember that I liked the most is when you're at the Bahamas, like, it is super refreshing. You're outside in the heat all day, so it's something like you don't want to be drinking something heavy and getting like, either like wrecked out of your mind in the first like 5 minutes or feeling like gross and like full within 10 minutes, right? Because it's something that just sits in your stomach and ruins you. Like Kalik is perfect at, like, it's almost like that. It's refreshing and tastes actually good out in the heat. You can put away a couple of them because you're not getting too wrecked, and it actually goes over pretty well, which is I remember enjoying the shit out of it by the pool. Yeah, exactly.
Now that I'm
definitely
thinking about it, more like a Corona vibe than a Budweiser vibe.
Absolutely. So I will say about this one, I'm not even kidding when I tell you, immediately when you open it, it smells exactly like peanut butter and jelly. Like, literally, not even like, oh, I get like undertones or anything like that. No, it's straight up just tones. It is 100%. This shit is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like in a glass, which is surprisingly better than you might think or what you might expect from that. It smells pretty much amazing, actually. Let's see what this tastes like. Wow. Okay, that is very interesting. I say that, and I know I assume the first thing you would think is that it means it's like not good, because you're like, you didn't say good, so that means it's not good. No, it's definitely not. It's just that there's so much happening right now that initially you're almost like, I have to take a second to think about that. It is real good. So like, this is not one that you would definitely not like. You wouldn't go to a bar that had it like on tap and be like, I'm gonna drink this all night long. Like, it's definitely not one of those. But like,
oh, it's like the overloaded version where you're like, you drink a couple of them and you're like, all right, I think I'm good for the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this does taste like, we've talked about that kind of, where you'd be like, this would eventually start to taste like, I imagine, you'd be like, I've just eaten 5 peanut butter and jelly and sandwiches, and that's not a good thing, right? Like, at a certain point, that's not a flavor that you want to have, you want to continuously have, unless you're like 4 years old, like, I'm past that in my stage of life. But it is the kind of thing that, like, this bottle that I'm about to have is going to be enjoyed probably from beginning to end immensely. At least right now up front, it is, it's actually, I guess the easiest way for me to describe is it is uncanny how much it tastes like the flavor of my peanut allergy is making this beer sound god-awful, LOL. Yeah, well, probably don't have it if you have a peanut allergy, certainly. But yeah, it's like, we have actually mentioned on the show how there are times where you're like, oh, I get like the back-end flavor or something like that. Like, this is actually surprisingly how much this tastes like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, all right.
In the options section.
So
enjoy the
real
shit
quick,
out of that.
Before we start the actual game real fast, I'll have you go into the options menu and go to language and just check to make sure the subtitles are on.
Yep, I did. So we have,
conversation.
And I actually made them be large so that you guys will be able to see them pretty easily on there. So subtitles on, subtitles are size large, so you can see right there that that's how it's going to look. It's
like
going to be pretty.
D.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what it says, which is weird. It's surprising that next to subtitles it says large like my D. I was like, okay. I mean, I get it. She's hot, but we don't have to jump right into that.
Well, guess what? Boy. She's also on the phone. No, that's a callback to our last episode. Check out the podcast. So go ahead and all right. And then one more thing. So as the ST500 or whatever, what is
ST200? ST200 model.
My bad. Yes. I upgraded her. Go to chapters. She just pointed out. You can see what your story progress is. So go to the chapters menu, and then go to the hostage episode 1. If you click it, it'll show you what choices you made last time. You want to quickly, just super fast summarize what happened in part 1 if anybody missed it.
Right. All right. So we can log into this, and so this is basically the breakdown that's showing us. Oh wow, the people who that's pretty cool actually. So she actually just, you guys will see, but she said, the idea she's pointing out to you that you can jump back into any point in time and replay it from there to kind of catch things that you missed. But I like their commitment to the, the fiction that they've created, where she straight up says, oh, but my creators have designed me to remind you that that they recommend you play through the game at least once all the way through before you go back and do that. But it's your choice to do whatever you want. Like so they're, instead of them just saying, normally a game would just have like a little tooltip that would pop up in the top corner like, hey, you can replay if you want, but like try to play the game first and then go back and do it. Whereas like they build into this world that, the robot's obviously telling you like, oh, my creators have told me to tell you that, you should play it all the way through, which I kind of like their commitment to this, this fictional.
That's funny. I was actually going to ask you that. Are you starting to develop like is it nice to log into this game and not get just like a straight up, well, here's the menu, pick what you want to do and start playing the game, but you actually kind of have a hostess that keeps inviting you back and remembers like, oh, you were here last time, do this, like these are some options you have, maybe nags you a little bit like your real wife would. And
right. No, I definitely do think like so far I can imagine maybe at a certain point, depending on how far they go down that route, like it could be annoying to some people, like the idea of putting everything in the fiction of the world. But to me, as somebody who is, I am clearly I am a story over mechanics person just in general. Like, I mean, a really good story told in a game will make me overlook a lot of, a lot of shortcomings in a gameplay, which is also why, like we've talked about on the show, specifically in this playthrough, like why I love Telltale games and stuff like that, is because, and that came up a lot, in previous that we've talked about, is specifically because of that fact that even though, yes, they have some shortcomings in the game, the idea that they commit to the story is more important to me, and I enjoy that part more. So similar in this type of game, the idea that they have from the moment this game turns on, like you are in the world, and the decisions you're making are because this robot is like asking you, like, to make your time here more enjoyable. Like, how would you like it to be done? Like, would you like it with these words or with this language or whatever? Like, it's just a cool way to commit to their fictional kind of this world that they've created for us, which is pretty cool. So I'm in on that. I like that part. That part does not. Nice. It definitely does not bother me. If anything, it's cool that they, because they could have easily just had things pop up on the screen like everyone does, right? It just says like, click on options to change your blah blah blah, and like make sure you do this, and like that's fine. It's also fine. It's not saying it's better or worse. It's just cool that you can do this in a world where everything is about AI and computers. So why not have your fucking computer game acknowledge that and be fucking committed to it? So that's pretty cool.
So meta.
Yep. Yeah, so it is. It is definitely cool. I like that.
I'm with it too. So anyway, so showing you had 35% completed the first mission. This went back to what we talked about. You kind of just took that. If you listen to our MCU project where we're doing like that role playing game and shit like that. Normally, CraigMakk like game plans the fuck out of everything, almost like Sherlock Holmes, and like trying to consider every possible possibility before he takes a step. In this one, you were just like unusually decisive and got right to it, and you actually were successful in your mission. But these are some of the choices you took. Just kind of like because we have this screen open, just when I played through it, I actually got all the clues. So there is. Oh wait, actually, there's one underneath "take the cop's gun" where I didn't. So I didn't. That part where you passed the cop and he was like, hurt, he was wounded. Remember that part?
Yes.
There was something under there that I didn't discover. That like once you took his gun, but then there could have been there was something else.
Something else
I
you
didn't
could have
discover that. And then one of the things that I triggered that you did not is see that little lock thing right above. So after you pass search for clues, right to the right, there's 3 little branches there, right? One is locked. The other one says go outside, right? And then the other one says SWAT injured.
Yep.
Right? So the go outside part is locked for me. I did not trigger that. Instead, I triggered the one above it that says wasted too much time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I spent more time getting all the clues, but then I wasted too much time, and you just got right to it and confronted the deviant.
And so the other thing I do definitely like about this is they do show you that certain things, because so typically in games, and actually to that point that you just made about me being, like analytical and trying to figure my way through everything before I take decisions and so on and so forth, and that is kind of not the way I did it this time, is very true in almost every single game I play, whereas like I am the epitome of the guy who like I explore every fucking thing, I open every drawer, I look in every little thing. I want to see all the because to me I'm like, hey, you designed this game, you probably put shit there because you want me to see it. So I want to engage with the world. I want to see what's I want to find all the little pieces of paper that have notes on them written from somebody, or all the dumb audio logs, even if they're poorly acted, all the Easter eggs that you've created in your game. Like I typically do that, right? So it's even interesting to me. So number one, the reason why I brought that up is because specifically I do like in this game where they show you that certain paths kind of supersede one another, right? They happen, they don't overlap. It's like it's either or, right? It's not that you can do all of them. It's that you can, if you chose to do this, you would probably miss this because you went a different way, but you might get to the end. You'll get to the next step anyway. So you can see like the wasted too much time or the go outside. There's a divergent where you go to one or the other, and then they converge back at confront deviant outside. And I like how this map kind of shows you that there's like things that. So if I want to see some of this stuff, I'd have to go back and make a different decision because the decision I made basically kind of precluded or locked off these other options, which is kind of a cool way to get you to want to replay the game because it lets you realize there are things that you literally could not have done, because you made a decision. And just like that's like life, right? Most times in life you can't do all of the things you want to do. It's a a decision tree that you reach where you're like, hey, I can do A and B, or I can do C and D, or maybe A and D, but I can't do A, B, C, D. And this game lays that out in a very visually, but also prevents you from seeing what those other things are, so it makes you be interested in wanting to know what those other things are. So I think that part's very cool, but also specifically back to the point that you made about being unusually decisive, that part of the reason why I was so quick to be decisive in this game does do a great job. At least that first mission to me, that first mission felt like it drove me through, like it created a sense of tension where there was shit happening, and there was like, even when I didn't know yet that guy was going to get shot, like you could hear them, like they were like yelling at you, like, dude, are you going to do, like, we need you to do something, like, what the fuck are you doing? Okay. And a lot of times games will do that, but it'll be done well. They'll be like, hey, come on out here. Hey, come on out here. Hey, come on. Right. And you're like, oh, he's just going to repeat that shit forever, so I'm just never going to I'll just do whatever the fuck I want to do. And then eventually when I go to the door, it'll trigger some cutscene that then they'll pretend as if I just ran right out there, right? And like, that always breaks that immersion to me, because I'm like, oh, there's this crazy fucking intense thing happening, but the world literally is in like a time bubble out there, as long as I just don't break this like invisible barrier that triggers that scene from happening. Whereas this game created, like, with the shit that they were saying and the way they were acting and the way the gameplay was kind of like felt like it was moving along, it made me almost feel, even though I didn't necessarily know the game was going to progress without me, right? I didn't necessarily know that would happen. In my mind, it was much more of, I felt this tension or this urgency within the fiction of that moment to be like, figure this shit out quick and let's go try to solve this. I felt like I found a couple things. I was like, in my head, I felt pretty, like, I was like, I think I have a pretty good, gauge of what just happened. I think I know what I need to figure this out. I'm sure there's more, but there's some shit going down out there, so let me get out there. And so, like, that is actually more impressive, I would say, of the way, at least, I can't speak to the rest yet because we'll get there, but at least of the way the first mission went, it was real cool at taking me, somebody who normally is like super methodical and like explore everything and pick up everything, even if it's like, oh, there's a salt shaker on the ground, maybe that's a fucking, right. Maybe that's a murder weapon, and they're just like, I don't know. Like, if any one of you have ever played like LA Noire, where you could just walk around in that game and literally pick up like a matchbook, and he would just straight up be like, well, this doesn't mean anything to me. And then you're like, fuck, and I put it down. And then you pick up something else, and he's like, I don't know what this means. And you're like, oh, God, it's just these stupid lines that mean, why'd you fucking put that thing there if it means nothing to the game? And that's normally how I'll do it. From
just, like, mousing over everything and picking everything up. They want you to be like, all right, well, if I'm going to waste my time to do something like that, like, there has to be some logic as to why I pick it up.
Right.
Which I don't mind that either. A bunch of red herrings to keep you from spending all of your time just searching for Easter eggs.
Right. And so, but in this, like, it was almost the reverse, where I felt very clear that there were things that I was missing, but I also felt like, and this is obviously going to sound stupid because I'm clearly not a police officer, but like, in the limited way that this game can create the illusion of you feeling like you are in a situation as a police officer, it made me feel that moment where you're like, okay, I'm sure there's more clues that I could find. I also feel like I found enough to have a pretty good idea of what's happening here and I need to make a move. Like, I need to act. Like, I don't have the luxury of time of just exploring everything. And so it actually paid off, and I'm sure that could have gone real shitty for me, but like, it actually paid off, which is kind of cool in the way they designed the game to make you feel like, you can try that. You can make that choice. You can make those decisions, and you can move forward and, kind of make an educated decision and see if you're right. And if you fuck up, you fuck up, but if you don't, you nailed it. So yeah, okay. So Dodd says,
just to address.
Yeah, Dodd said, by the way, if you can only pick up important clues, LA Noire would kill realism because it would make your cop a character, a robot, or magic or something. I do agree. You're right. It would be stupid if you could only pick up the things that were of value, that were helping you solve the case, because you're like, yes, why am I only being drawn to the things that are solving the case? I guess more the issue was there was so much shit in that game. There was literally trash everywhere. So for someone like me, who is drawn to picking up if something's highlighted and it allows me to pick it up, I'm going to. And if I can pick up 35 things and 33 of them are things where he's going to be like, this doesn't mean anything to my case, I'm going to be like, well, now this game is boring to me because it actually feels like I'm wasting time.
I think that's them kind of trying to guide you to not do that, right? Mm-hmm. That's their way of reading you in. Rather than this game, which also does it in another cool way, like you said, it's like okay, you can pick up all the Easter eggs, but then understand that's going to lock off another choice that you now don't get to pick because of what you did.
Right. So, which I think that's a cooler way to do it, by the way. That's a cooler way to do it, I think, is yes, you can make choices, but those choices are important and will lock off other things, versus if they were just like, you could pick up this pillow, you could pick up this, this pencil, you could pick up, like, none of this means anything, we're just wasting your time to tell you don't pick up everything. I'm like, that's actually kind of maybe shitty game design. You should just make your things be more important or interesting or have greater consequences, and then have that drive me to make my decisions make sense, right? But anyway, go ahead.
Just let me just point out something that is kind of relevant to this game too. Is like, what is it? Because the person in you that, like, the intelligent human being in you that thinks about practical application of things, right, would just say, well, they put that in the game to keep me from picking everything up, so I'm not going to pick everything up, because once I picked 3 things up and they all were just inconsequential, I realized my time is being wasted on purpose. They're putting this needle in a haystack so that I don't just blindly search and I actually have a reason for everything I'm picking up, right? And if my reaction then becomes, well, no, there's 37 things out there and I can pick them all up and I have to pick them up, then that's where you start acting more like a machine, right? You're like, fuck it, because the simple solution is don't do it. But the OCD in CraigMakk says, no, fuck, now I have to pick up 37 things and I hate this game. And then you have to ask yourself, is it the game to blame or is it yourself in the way you're playing it? And, they say, like, Crazy is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's where kind of like you're beating your head against the brick wall saying, the game fucking sucks because I didn't, because, I kept doing the same thing and it wasn't working out for me, So just a good thought to consider.
It is true. The only downside to that too was because that game was entirely just you are a police officer or a detective. So the problem is, in that game, you're walking into a crime scene and you're walking around, and literally a matchbook could be a clue in one screen but not in another, right? Because I could pick it up and be like, oh, this is telling me about a place where I need to go to investigate, like, oh, this, another place this guy could have been or something like that. But in the next scene he'll pick up that same matchbook and be like, this doesn't mean anything to me. So the problem becomes, in a game like that, you are incentivized to pick up things because you're like, I'm supposed to be a police officer, I'm supposed to be investigating. If the game is going to create, like, a piece of trash is not interactable, right, or is not interactive, but a beer bottle is interactive, this is a crime scene, how can I differentiate, like, well, you're telling me the trash is not important because you're not even letting me interact with it. Then you're telling me the beer bottle is interactive, so maybe it is important to the game because I'm still trying to figure out what happened in this crime scene. Whereas, like, this game did it, I think, in a better way because they put you in okay, you have to make decisions. Those decisions have consequences. You can find things that are important. Maybe you'll pick something up and not figure out what the importance of it is immediately. Just like you, meaning you as the player, not as the character. Like, that's like, it's a better game mechanic. You know what I mean? I do agree that you're saying, yes, my OCD fucks with me, but it is a better game mechanic because it makes the game seem more real life, but also interesting. Because also, yes, if you're a police officer, ideally the whole thing should be, your police officer should be knowledgeable enough to know what he should and shouldn't pick up in a crime scene, right? Like, if he's just like, what is this? What is this? What is this? I mean, if you just saw police officers walking around picking up, like, oh, what's this kickball here for? What is this rock here for? You'd be like, oh my God, that man has, like, he needs help immediately. What's wrong? Why are they letting him still have his badge? In the same way that, like, if you're telling me that I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to be a super military guy, but then you don't make, like, the shooting in the game be semi-easy. If you're leaving it up to me be a good shot, then I'm like, well, then this is just dumb because I'm not a good military, like, marksman. And if you're making me be, if you're saying you're supposed to be an amazing sniper, yet everything is relying on my eye-hand coordination and I suck, then that's going to break the realism of me feeling like I am the person I am. So this game was able to, like, marry all that together and make you feel like, yes, You are what you're supposed to be. You're able to pick the kind of the wheat, from the chaff and the signal from the noise and all that kind of shit, just because you already have that basic knowledge. Now it comes down to you as the player determining where do you want to put your time, like what do you want to go after, and have that be the decision, as opposed to did you just pick up the wrong fucking shit because you are fucking OCD, or games have conditioned you that collectibles are fucking everywhere and you're supposed to pick up 1,000, fucking feathers because that's what Assassin's Creed has told us we're supposed to do or whatever. So anyway, we've spent 35 minutes on this, so.
Yeah. Time to probably hurry up and get to the game. Let's just walk everybody just through the rest of your timeline just so they could see really quickly what happened.
All right. So as we said, we did the early where I did all the searching. I found essentially the information that showed me that he had been he was being replaced. That the father was in the process of reordering a new robot, for them, or a new android for them, and so that kind of precipitated this moment of this robot or this android going from feeling like a member of the family to feeling betrayed and feeling like he was being thrown away. He, I did the whole analysis, realized that he shot the dad and then kidnapped the daughter. So I went outside and confronted him. And as I was walking outside to confront him, one of the cops got shot through the window and kind of all hell broke loose. So I just was like, fuck, okay, I got to do no more. I got to get out there right away. So I, at that point, confronted him. And this is where you can see where I kind of tried to stay the friendly approach to him. I tried to be mostly truthful, although obviously at that one point I kind of lied. I was like, hey, I can help you get out of this, but you just have to listen to me, knowing that obviously I didn't think I could necessarily get him out of it, but it also felt like it was in my mind, and we talked about this at the end of the last episode, I was trying to go the hostage negotiation of befriend, don't antagonize, befriend, but don't be full of shit, try to build a trust and relationship with this person so you can try to kind of talk them down. And to the point where obviously you can see I dismissed the helicopter. I kind of kept walking towards him slowly, even when he was like, get the fuck away from me, but being like, I'm not coming to fuck with you. I just want to talk to you because I can help you. That's when I kind of told him I can help you, and it didn't, obviously that was the lie, but I did build his trust. None of this stuff was I able to unlock, so I don't know if that's if I take a shot at him or kill him, or if he kills himself, or if he tries to jump off the side, or all the different things that you had mentioned could have happened. My guy.
Yeah, the top one for me. Yep. So I had the be honest with Deviant thing going, which is right over lie. Where you have lie to Deviant. I put I had be honest with Deviant, and then Deviant.
That's where you basically told him you're fucked, right? Like you told him you're fucked, but don't make it worse.
This is right. This is happening, but there's just no way that this is happening. But I can put in a word for whatever, right? And then the Deviant decides to jump with Emma, right? Which is the next little chain, and then it says, and then I reached out for Emma and saved her by pulling her back, but I also fell with him.
Right. Okay.
My death.
Okay.
Or Connor did.
Right, Connor did, yes. So what I did the lie. Obviously, I build trust with him, where I was like, just let her go, and we'll get out of here. We'll make it. We can figure a way out of this. You just have to let her go first. Don't take her.
Engineer.
Right. Don't take her away. Don't take it out on her. Right. Remember, you do love her, because he also uncovered to me, which obviously you had found in the house, the idea of the stuff that he considered himself a family friend. I mean, obviously I internalized that from the fact that when he found out he was being replaced, he went crazy. I wasn't like a mental, it wasn't like a mental leap to figure that out, but you actually found clues that showed he kind of perceived himself to be a member of the family. So I kind of played on that, where I was like, don't take it out on her. You still do care about her. It's not her fault. And that's when he let her go. And then the snipers shot the fuck out of him almost immediately, as soon as he let her go. Yeah, and then he caught one, as you can see right there. He caught one through the cheek, came out the other side, said, you lied to me, Connor, dropped down to his knees, and then I just walked right the fuck out of there. I just turned around and walked out as the cops were I guess basically cleaning up the fucking mess of what happened on the roof. And I think that's where it came to the end.
By the way, I asked you, how do you think Connor felt at that situation? And I think your response was, I don't think he felt one way or the other. He completed his mission per the programming and didn't really feel one way or the other.
Right. Yeah. Whereas you said you felt much more that he felt bad for having.
I thought there was a little look for him, but that's how I interpreted it. But obviously, the way you play the character will shape the rest of the game. So my truth won't be your truth necessarily.
Right. Right. And I also did feel like I thought that there was some degree of like connection, like he showed the cops that he could do it, so there was maybe that feeling of like kind of like fuck you guys, like I completed my mission when you guys were, you guys were talking all this shit, you guys were freaking out, you guys broke down and were freaking out outside in the hallway when you got shot. I came in to the lion's den and completed my mission. So like that moment of kind of what now type feeling like I did what I was supposed to do. What about you guys? More of just a completing a mission, and I'm going to walk out of there as the android that they brought me out here to do. So I don't necessarily think that he felt bad about that android being shot at all, and I don't, I couldn't get a vibe yet, I guess, on how he feels about being treated like shit from the cops. But I guess we'll kind of dig into that. Well, did you say
like you think the deviants are the ones with the feelings? He doesn't necessarily have feelings,
right? Or at least he is just kind of programmed to display. To imitate feelings, right? I guess that's kind of my perception in the world so far, is that he is kind of he is playing out what he assumes is the reaction you're supposed to have. So the ability to like show empathy and all that kind of stuff, but it's like it's programming. Whereas obviously the quote unquote deviant behavior is once they're able to independently react to those feelings or have those feelings independent of programming. They just are reacting based on what's happening to them. So that's why I forget what this guy's name is, but the dude who got shot, that why he was able to obviously feel like betrayed that he got lied to, whereas like Connor Moore was like, cool, all right, I did what I was supposed to do, I'm out. Almost like
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel. Okay, Daniel. Yep. Cool.
I mean, yeah. All right, so let's get this party started. And just for those of you watching, because we're not sitting in the same room on this one, and because they don't allow us to share play stuff while we stream, unfortunately, I'm watching this on Twitch time like the rest of you. So there's like a 6 to 8 second delay on what we're seeing on Craig's screen. So I'm going to, keeping that in mind, basically my talking while the game is going on is going to be a lot less than Craig's. He's going to be in the driver's seat, and I'm just going to, kind of comment when he kind of brings me into it. So, right. And then as always, as we, intend to do with these, by the way, in the future, these front end discussions are going to be less and less. This time around, we were kind of, just, right. Reflecting on the general, what this series is going to be and all that stuff. But most of the time we get right to the game, and then the big, discussions are after the game. So if you enjoyed the game and you want to stick around and see some insight about what we just played, stick around after that. Then Craig and I will be kind of launching into the full discussion. But we're doing one chapter right now. This is going to be chapter 2. We did chapter 1 before, and then we'll quickly turn around and talk about it. So tune in. And let's do this.
Yeah, and one thing we will do after the episode, we didn't get a chance to do it last time, but I'm just kind of scrolling through, so if you're watching, you can see. But one of the cool things I think will be helpful when we do a recap is going in and looking at the world stats, where you compare like decisions that you made, kind of like that telltale, like 63% of the world's decided to kill the kid, whatever. Like this basically shows straight up like that 63% of the people investigated the father's body, 84% of the people, the SWAT team guy was injured, 83% of the time people dismissed the helicopter, 35% of the people built trust, and actually surprisingly only 35% of the time the snipers shot the deviant in people who played this game.
Really?
So yeah, so that
30. Well, I mean, because there's a few different. Yeah, so that makes sense actually, because there's there's final like
four,
outcomes.
Five,
1, 2, 3,
five.
4, 5,
Yep.
6 final possible outcomes. So
okay,
35% is a big one. And mine was the Connor leapt for Emma and fell was 35% too.
Okay.
So that's like 70% of it is either one
she
of
gets
those saved
two.
one way or the other. Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense then. Okay, that actually does work out. So that's pretty cool. So we'll definitely dig more into that shit after we play this chapter, when we get into the rest of when we get into the after show kind of conversation about it. So I guess on that, right, we're ready to go. You got your beer, you're all set to go?
Yes, sir.
Right. Here we go. Let us get this show on the road. I'm going to turn this up just a tiny bit so I can hear it better. All right, we're loading it up right now.
There's a contingency of people watching this. They're like, good, I skipped up to this part, and they finally started playing.
Yeah, exactly. I know. This is where in the notes, if this was the podcast, we would say, jump ahead 45 minutes in if you give a shit about just seeing the game. All right, here we go. They are rebooting, memory reset, Loading OS system initialization. All right, so we're starting up whatever my new robot is. We will find out what's happening. Oh, there's a kid. There we go.
This is the top-of-the-range household assistant.
Okay.
It cooks 10,000 different dishes.
Come on, Zoe, let's go.
Languages and dialects.
This is cool. So it's just straight up like an Apple store for fucking Androids, which is pretty cool. Oh, that's fucking cool, actually.
How much did you say it costs? At the moment, we're doing a special promotion on this entire range.
$8,000.
$7,999.
48 months interest-free credit. Yeah. It's like
really cheap for an Android.
It's like a really expensive computer would be like about $5,000. So $8,000 for a fucking robot. That seems incredible.
And I forget what year
deal.
we're in, but imagine like after inflation, 8,000 is probably nothing.
Right. Oh, you can order them pre-owned, a Model KW500 pre-owned.
I would not like an Android that like had
Pre-owned?
seen all the shit going on in my house, and then I sell it back. Like I don't even let my cell phones go back to the cell phone company because they have too much of my info in it.
Exactly.
Imagine
an
Android. It's been like, oh shit.
I'm like, yeah, you can get that shit back if I put a drill through it, maybe.
Anyway, it's as good as new now, except that we had to reset it.
Oh, they reset me. Fuck. Okay, so they wiped the
I'll
memory.
be fine. Okay. Did you give it a name?
My daughter did.
Oh, he's rebuying.
AX400. Register your name.
Oh, I have to register my name.
Kara.
Okay. Oh, Kara. This is the famous Kara. Okay, this is the one we talked about from the oh wow, we're
video.
seeing
She's not the same though. It's like it's she's same in name only. Like it's it's the actress.
Right.
It's just
Right. They use that
prototype.
Right. They use that as just a a proof of concept of like, hey, look how cool we can make it look, and then the idea of the robot, which is we have talked about. I mean, like I said, wow, there's a lot of famous people in this. Minka Kelly, Lance Hendrickson.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the quality of the actors in this is fucking legit.
Yeah.
I love Minka Kelly, by the way.
Yeah, she is amazing.
Fucking great.
She is amazing.
Definitely a girlfriend experience.
Yeah, absolutely. She is excellent at that. So, Nanny Sim. Way to go, Dad. So, so the thing that I actually do think that the Kara, like we talked about in the last one, the Kara video, the original one, was a very good first, exposure to the idea of free will in a robot, right? It's that idea that we talked about last time of like, at what point do you consider you're alive, whether or not you say you're human, at what point are you alive if you have free will? And that video, that was uncomfortable to watch. Yeah, her saying like, please don't take me apart, as they're like, oh, we're gonna have to send you back to be disassembled, and she's like, I want to live, and you're just like feeling this fucking emotion of that must be, I guess, what it's like. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of emotion, I can be very honest and say that I earlier watched the movie Coco today. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
I definitely teared up a little bit in that, and that's a fucking Disney movie, and it definitely made me get a little teary-eyed. So, fuck, man, there's all this free will and being alive and shit. I'm in a dark place today. I'm gonna go drink a little bit. Hold on. So it's 2038. Now we know 2038. Yeah, it made Dodd cry. All right, I agree, man. It was. The end, really fucking hit me hard at the end of Coco. I highly recommend that movie. You should see it. Yeah.
We're in 2038, so 20 years in the future.
2030. A lot has changed in 20 years. Technology has advanced like a motherfucker.
This could realistically be true.
Go to Bellini Paint's shop.
Jesse Williams.
All right. I'm just trying to. Where's the paint shop? How am I supposed to know where I'm going? Who are those people? Get out of my way. Alright. Oh, okay. That was crazy. So apparently
when funny, like P. Diddy hires real people to do that, to jog with him.
Press R2 to use. Okay, there we go. Retrieve order 847 at Bellini Paints. Oh, so they show me that there's other things I could do on the way already. Whoop, I just put my crotch in that man's face. I'm not sure why, but he just walked right into him, and the guy just had his face down and continued to put his face in my crotch.
Oh wait, what is that? Take that, motherfucker. Yeah. Silent protest.
Oh, if you guys just want to watch this man play his guitar, you totally can. And listen to him sing. I guess that's like a thing that you can. Human music, $1 to hear music with soul. Wow. Okay, so we're going there.
They did
already.
this shit in Life is Strange too. There were a bunch of scenes where you could just
you could just like sit and watch it.
I'm gonna sit here on this bench.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I definitely did that. Where you just sit on the bench and have her like contemplate shit. And I was like, well, of course, I'm just gonna let this happen until I have to not, because
Until
fuck
she's
that.
not talking anymore.
Yeah,
I
until
just wanna
she's
hear
done.
what say.
All right. So where it's there. There we go. I like that he just has his built-in GPS. Oh, I'm walking into this man. Get out of my way, sir! I'm a goddamn robot and I'm walking here.
I'm walking here.
Hey, what the fuck? I'm walking over
That
here.
motherfucker's like, oh
guy's-
yeah, well I'm fucking white. You get out of my way, bitch.
That's pretty funny. Bellini Paints is not this way. They're just like, don't go over here because this is not Bellini Paints.
Dodd says there's a similar scene in Beyond Two Souls.
What, a robot walking going to a paint store? I don't remember that part. It's a highly specific scene. I walked right by Bellini Paints. I want to see if there's anything else. Bellini Paints is not this way. All right. Can I spare some change? No, I cannot, sir. I have a paint store to get to. Collect the package. Oh, wow. They have a lot of paint colors in this place.
You ever walk into like a real paint store and just look around like, damn, this is like, in a way, it's kind of, I don't know, makes you feel good. I don't know, when I look around, it's all those fucking colors.
Really?
This is random, I know, but I don't know why. It's like, whenever I walk in a paint store, I'm like, it's like a real life rainbow. Like, I just walk around, there's all these colors for every, and like the range of the emotions, like the colors, like, just touches me. I don't know.
Right.
Here is your order number.
I mean, I definitely got a nice little hit, I guess, from walking into this place.
I had a
I
vulnerable
like all the
moment
colors
there.
here. All right, let's see. I'm paying. Oh, there we go. All right. Note to self: never take Jess to a paint store. He might start crying.
Or jizzing all over the cans. One of the things.
Oh,
One of the
jeez.
things.
Oh, jeez, CraigMakk. This place is beautiful. It's fucking beautiful, man.
How'd you like how he paid, by the way?
Yeah, they scanned each other's brains. It was pretty solid.
I saw a commercial for something like that recently where they're doing that shit where you swipe your fucking fingerprint and that's your ID everywhere, and then like
Right.
you probably start paying with it soon. I don't know about that shit. For
Oh,
me,
yes,
man.
okay. I do remember Paige singing with the guitar. Yes, okay. That's what he was referring to. So, yeah, I mean, there's already been stories for quite some time, right, about the, like, people who have, like, put, like, RFID chips in their, like, wrist or forearm, and, like, they can scan, you know, for... Is this where they're telling me to go? Wait, what the fuck? Oh, over there. So it's like you can scan your forearm and it'll, like, charge, you know, your RFID card, like, built into your arm. So it seems
no
pretty
way.
intense. Like, yeah, that's probably a bit much.
Although
Oh,
I have
fuck.
been arrested before, so the feds got my fingerprints.
Oh no. Oh, this guy's fucking
And
with the
plus-
robots. Oh, people are just
This
dicks.
motherfucker. You steal our jobs, but you can't even stand up.
Okay, this is just... They're being over the top shitty for no reason. Oh, they're... What? You're still allowed to beat the shit out of them? Oh, like, you're really slow at getting up, dude. I'm trying. Why aren't you just getting up? Why don't you just get up?
We're gonna fuck your bitch ass up.
I think he's in pain. I mean, I think they probably do feel some sort of pain.
Alright,
Yeah. There we go. Okay, a cop showed up finally.
leave it alone.
Let us teach this bastard a lesson.
Yeah, but remember, this is a black android. His
Yeah.
life is at risk.
Yeah. Ooh, what?
Take your job next.
His little, like, blue thing started turning red. I don't know if that means he was getting pissed off.
Yeah, I think when it turns red, it's...
They're about to get angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Oh, what? The bus pulled away while I was walking up like a dick. Fucking everyone's racist towards these androids. This is an issue. Why are they dicks to robots? The robot looks like a regular person. If it looked like a hideous monster, it'd make a little more sense.
They're clearly
Yeah.
dressed differently though. They're like in the
and they also have
you
the
can
thing on the
easily
head.
Identify.
Right, and they have
you
the
can
little
identify
Android compartment. But yeah, I mean, this is like super similar to the idea of like if you were just like, I'm just gonna walk around and beat up like minorities because they're taking my jobs.
Right.
Like, you know, the idea of it just being like, yes, okay that you might be annoyed by it, but the fact that we're in a world where it's just like okay to just fucking pound on somebody. You know, I mean, again, I understand that they're trying to acknowledge that these things are not like alive, but also the idea is very similar to me. Is like, would you just walk around and beat the shit out of? Here we go. Okay, they just showed another little breakdown of this of what we just did. So that would be like, would you just beat the shit out of like a fucking robot like in a fucking factory because you're like, you're taking my job, and all of a sudden you start punching it? Like, then you're just stupid. You just look like a lunatic that's beating on a fucking like a Roomba because you used to be the guy who swept the floor. Like, that seems dumb. So I don't know. All right, so is that the end of this chapter?
Yeah, that was chapter 2. Yep.
Okay,
so that was
nice.
quick.
Okay.
So maybe that's why maybe that's probably why Dodd didn't like this chapter this much. So that was Dodd saying that. I didn't realize that. This is an issue. Why are they dicks to the robot? The robot looks like a regular person.
Yeah.
It would look like a hideous one. Yeah, but it's clearly all right. So I mean, that's something we're going to talk about now.
Right.
So this is the end of the episode, and we'll we're launching into the discussion part now. Hopefully, you'll stick around for some of this. And there's not that much that we witnessed, so I don't imagine this will go on that long. But there are some key issues that are starting to take shape.
Right.
So, first of all, the scene opens with Kara in the Apple store. So something's happened where her memory's been damaged, or where she was damaged, and they had to memory wipe her. How did you like kind of that? Did the Apple store with the androids kind of strike you? I know we talked about some of it.
Right. Yeah. So I think I think the concept is my assumption, right, is that they are trying to drive home the commoditization of these things, right, where it is the same thing as walking into a phone store and just being like, check out the new model, and this one's more expensive, but you can get a prefab version of the old one over here, and like it's just these robots have been so so commoditized to the point where people don't feel anything about them that is anything remotely similar to human, right? So that the idea of, although I did get the vibe that there was some type of a different relationship when that guy came in and like wanted Kara back, when he was like reacquiring her or whatever. I mean, at least I know we were talking a little bit over it, but I think that was the vibe that I got. I think it was that she got damaged and they had to mind wipe her, and he had her, I guess, being repaired, and he was coming back to take her back. Am I correct in that? Is that what was happening?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Well, she got damaged in some way, and they had to wipe her. And
as part of the repair, they were like, "Yeah, we were able to repair her, but unfortunately, we had to mind wipe her. Is that okay?" And he was like, "I mean, I guess he definitely seemed to have more of an emotional response to her than obviously most people who were just walking around through that store like, fuck it, this one like seems too expensive. I don't want to waste my money on that, or why don't we just get the pre-owned one or whatever?" And like he seemed to have like a little bit more of a reaction. I don't know if that's like a weird thing or a creepy thing or a normal thing, or it's just like he actually feels he treats her like a human, and that's just a normal thing. But it seemed a little bit weird just because it was so obviously different than every other person that was in there. So I guess that's something that I will keep an eye on. But
he seemed familiar with the robot, whereas other people were picking out the. So that look of familiarity is what he's like. He's receiving back this robot. I don't remember how he reacted to when they told him they might wipe the mind. He was disappointed. You thought?
He seemed to be just like, it was more that he was just like, well, I'm just. He was more just like, they were like, is that okay? And he was just like, yeah, I guess, but it seemed more that he was just like, well, if it is what it is, that's kind of how it seemed. It didn't seem like he was like, it wasn't that he was happy with it. It didn't seem like he was upset with it. It just seemed more like he was like, okay, I mean, I guess so. But they made a point of obviously saying in the dialogue that they made sure that they said like, hey, but we had to wipe her mind. Is that okay? And he wasn't like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. So the fact that he didn't say that implies to me that obviously there's something that he's like, well, maybe she knows something, or whether it's that she knows something that I wish she still knew in a weird, suspicious way, or, well, she was as far as I was concerned, she was a person that I cared about, and if that part's gone, that's a bit of a bummer. It could be that too. Like I don't know yet. Obviously, I don't know enough to know, but I just did kind of at least pick up on that it seemed it seemed at least different enough to jump out at me in a scene that was kind of most people just being like, I don't know, fuck it, let's get the MR 3200 or whatever the fuck because it's only $8,000 or something, and it has 48 months of interest-free, financing or whatever the fuck they were talking about. So like everyone else is just treating them literally in the same way that I do. Like, should I get the new iPhone or should I keep my old iPhone because it still seems to work okay? And I'll wait for the next one. That's how everyone else was treating him, and he obviously had more of an emotional connection or reaction, or at least, like you said, familiarity with her, in that he treated her differently.
So he brings her home, and they start going through the neighborhoods of Detroit. And first it focuses on the landmarks of Detroit and the things that make it famous. I have been to Detroit one time in my life, 20 years ago. I don't like none of those landmarks really stood out to me necessarily, but I imagine that if you are really familiar with Detroit, like a friend of the show, more shots is from Michigan and has been in Detroit many times. I'm sure he could probably, some of that stuff is probably like, oh, cool to him, because they made a point of focusing on some of those landmarks.
I would say, same deal. I've been to Detroit like maybe 2 or 3 times, and half the time for work, so it's not like I was hanging out and enjoying it, so I did, same deal that it didn't resonate with me in that same way, but it did strike the same type of emotional chord that the concept of like the beginning the Sopranos had, where yes, if you're not from New Jersey, that means nothing to you, but if you're from New Jersey, every sign they're showing you, like on the turnpike and on the parkway and all that shit, resonates because you're like, oh, that's down the street from me, or I've been there, or I've driven past this, or whatever. So like, and if you're not from New Jersey and you see that, you at least that there's that resonate that it resonates with you, that you're like, I understand that this means something to somebody who's from there. And so that actually did a pretty good job, almost like the same way The Wire did, right? For like, when it was showing Baltimore, like it showed all these scenes in the opening parts where you're like,
Sopranos,
okay,
it's a good show, so
right, yes, it is. So I think that the idea of
The Wire was even better than Sopranos, though.
I agree, and so one of the things about that is it's a pretty well-worn trope, right? Of the idea of like in an opening sequence to show the area, especially if the area is a almost a character, right? When the town or the city that your show or movie or in this case video game is more than just a setting, but it is actually integral to the storyline. It's a well-worn trope, but it's good when used well. The idea of lingering over the landscape, right? Reminding you of where that location is, what it is about. Whether or not it resonates to everyone doesn't necessarily mean anything, but what it does mean is they are recognizing it as an additional character. And so this did remind me of that. Whether or not it was done well, I don't know, because I'm not from there, but at least I got that same vibe of, yeah, okay, so Detroit obviously isn't just the name of the game, but it is also, part of the story that they are, at least focusing a bit on, which I thought was pretty cool, or at least it was an interesting idea to try to do,
Right. Oh, by the way, I thought this was just kind of a little story, a little sidetrack, if you allow me, but you never know when you write something or when you do this iconic, kind of what you'll inspire in your viewers. And so as you were saying all these things, like, Sopranos meant something for people from Jersey. When we were in Iraq, when I was in Iraq, Sopranos was still a show that was still on the air. Right. And we used to watch some of the old, during our downtime, we would watch some of the old like episodes or whatever. Actually, because one of my sergeants was like, she was like, hey, you guys gotta, if you have never watched it all the way through, she brought like the DVD copies of all the past shows, right? Right. And she used to play them all the time. And so,
who was this? You said? Who was that?
One of the people on my unit, one of our sergeants.
Nice.
So she was.
She
awesome. Would play it all the time for us. Yeah, and I remember we would watch it, and I would get really homesick for Jersey out there, and I was just thinking, man, I like a thought that you don't often hear, but like watching that show made me really, really miss being able to drive on the turnpike.
Right.
You believe it or not, like, and after coming home, that's one of the things I wanted to do most.
Right.
Was go drive on the New Jersey Turnpike.
Right.
Yeah, I try to remember that when it's rush hour and I'm like stuck on.
Yeah. Remember when I fucking longed to do this, and now I fucking want to drive into the rear of the car in front of me, like.
Yeah.
But it is a testament to how powerful that can be when it's done well, right? Is the idea of triggering these feelings or moments or reflections on an area where you can be from, when even taking the negative things, right, or the potentially negative things like driving on, commuting to work, but when it touches or triggers these memories of an area that you have a fondness for, it's a powerful emotion, right? It's like the idea of how like smell can trigger emotion, and like music can remind people of a time. Like there's still obviously songs, like same as I'm sure with you, songs I can think of when I hear a song. It not only do I'm like, oh, I remember when I was in high school or whatever, but like I can have vivid actual memories of like an event that took place where I was listening to that song, and it takes me back to that in the same way. Like when you smell a thing and you remember, like I remember this time when I was in my grandma's house and like she was making apple pie and whatever, like these types of things are powerful, emotional triggers. And doing that in a show like The Sopranos, or obviously what David Cage was going for, again, I can't say if it was effective or not, having not been from there, but at least I got where he was going. What he was going for was the idea of triggering this emotion of a connection to a place that you are familiar with or from or haven't been back in a while. And obviously he also had the ability in this to be like, to try to say, okay, this is, X number of years in the, 20 years in the future. So it had to be a futuristic version of this place, but obviously still have to be, similar enough that you can connect the dots if you're, if you've been there. Right. And I think that it would be interesting to talk to somebody who is from Detroit to say like, oh, did that actually work? Like, is this a believable version of Detroit, 20 years in the future? Or is it just like, it's fucking insert Blade Runner-esque city here and then just name it whatever the fuck you want. He could have named it Neo Tokyo if he wanted, and it would have been exactly as effective. That'd be interesting to actually hear from someone who has a better insight than obviously you or I do on that.
Maybe we'll get more shots to end up watching this and
yes.
comment.
Yeah.
Really quick, did you notice any change in the scenery as that scene went on? If not, it's fine.
In terms of the like when they were driving through, you mean?
Yeah, they're driving through to get to their home, and like at first it's all like all the landmarks, and then you see all the high tech like upgrades that you wouldn't notice if you've ever been to Detroit because they don't exist yet. Right. And then they finally get to the neighborhood where where she's returning to her home. Did you notice anything about the neighborhood?
No, I didn't. I don't remember if there was anything that I noticed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And you'll have an opportunity to notice if you notice, if it's of any significance to you later. Right. That's not like a really clue or anything, but it's just not a conversation that's worth having at this point. I just want to bring it up in case you did. Right. And so that's it. So that's the end, actually, of the opening chapter. So curiously, because there were no choices to make in that one, that's Chapter 2 is really the opening where they basically arrive back at their home neighborhood, and then it took us right into Chapter 3. So technically this is Chapters 2 and 3 that we just played through and are about to have a discussion of. And 3 is Shades of Color, and that's what you're seeing up on the... There is no choice branch for 2 because there was nothing in there. So if you want to... So reflecting back on this walk in the park. So he starts out in the park, and I noticed you weren't that interested in like taking a look around the park and taking in the scenery. You're like, yep, I'm just gonna fucking get to my fucking pink shop and. So
honestly, the funny thing was, I actually started to walk around at first. Like I was like you might have noticed when it first started. I started walking up towards people and like walking up to individual people that were like, a guy sitting there, or a guy who was like talking to his friend. I would walk towards them, and like nothing was triggering on the screen as like, oh, press L1 to see this or to look at this person or do something. So I just kind of like I did that like twice, and when nothing was happening, I was like, all right, I guess I'm just supposed to walk up to the thing, and maybe I'll have some more options as I get closer to there. And then as I got closer to there, I started I literally walked by the paint store to try to see if there's other stuff I could look at or walk around to or see, and they were straight up like, this is not the way, you can't go over here. And I was like, all right, I guess you're just railroading me towards this fucking paint store, which now that I'm looking back, I'm seeing clearly there were things that I missed. Like there's a bunch of things that I missed. So it's like I'm still in
What's
this
your percentage
game.
Completed again? I can't see it from the way you use.
It says 50% completed. So yeah, I got
I only
5
got
of them.
58% for mine. So you're kind of, it's funny because after chapter 1, you play this and now like fuck, time could be a significant thing, so don't spend too much time looking for Easter eggs.
Right.
And then on this one there was no like driving urgency necessarily that we knew about. You don't know if something was going to happen, so you didn't want to waste too much time fucking around in the park for fear that you could miss out on something else. And you and I largely took the same choices. I saw a preacher on my way in to watch the preacher, and I could see from world stats about 51% of people saw that preacher preaching against how the end is coming near as the androids are bringing this unholy aspect to society or whatever.
And so, full disclosure, I will say, and it is a thing that I'm going to have to struggle a little with as we continue to play this, is that as this being, we're not playing like a when we were playing our 2-player game, like A Way Out, or even if we were streaming us playing like fucking Call of Duty or something, where it's like, it's basically just, you're just watching us, run around and accomplish a task, right? In this game, because this is different and it's more of a, like an adventure, exploration type game. So normally, as I said, I would so like in this one, I didn't feel the time constraints, driven by the story that the first mission did, like the one with the, in the cop where even though whether or not there was like an actual time clock running in the background, I was feeling like, okay, I figured it out, let me get out there and do it. This one, I didn't feel that at all. There was no like, artificial or real time constraints. The only time constraint that I did feel, and it's a thing I'm going to have to struggle with and probably talk through with you as I continue to play, is when you're streaming a game, there is that element of feeling like, all right, like I walked by 2 people, nobody's interacting with me. I don't want to have people just sitting here having me walk up to every little thing and be like, can I talk to this person? No. Can I look at this thing? No. Can I walk over here? No. Can I do this? No. Because then you're just going to be like, well, this is just boring and I don't want to fucking watch this guy play. So part of me was like, I tried a couple of times, nothing happened, so I was like, all right, let me get out of this fucking park. Right.
It's a valid approach, and it's one we should probably follow. Like, make this like an entertaining movie. David Cage built it as a movie. Try to stick with that.
Absolutely. And I mean, if anything else, like the upside will be that after the fact, I'll be able to see, okay, here's things I missed. All right, that's going to start to gauge me to be like, all right, so if in any given segment there's like 5 or 6 or 10 things that I missed, maybe be a little bit more like, look around, start looking, because there's stuff you're going to miss, but don't try to pick up everything, right? Because again, that would be boring to anyone watching. So it's kind of training me to play this game in a different way, which is interesting, right? Because it's changing. Number one, I've been very clear even from the beginning of this episode. It's changing the way I would normally play this, where I would walk around and look at everything and try to do everything because that's just how I would normally play. But it's also, allowing me to potentially have decisions go in a way that will change, make interesting moments where I'm going to have to deal with situations that I I possibly wouldn't have dealt with had I been just sitting in my house by myself playing this game and not worrying about people, on the other end of the internet watching it. This is going to put me in some different situations, which I think is probably interesting. So it is kind of cool to like realize that. But yes, I did pretty much realize, okay, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to do here. Not a whole lot, like in terms of people, that I can interact with. So let me get the fuck out of the park and see what I can do over there. And then, from there, I think I just felt like, I once I realized I couldn't interact with any of the other stores and there weren't other people talking that I could listen to or anything like that, I kind of just went in. Well, I did watch that guy play the music for a little bit, which was cool. That Life is Strange moment of let's just listen to this man sing his fucking song. And then I went in, paid for the paint. We heard you cry for a little bit because you love color so much.
So many feelings, double rainbow.
It's goddamn beautiful, man.
It's a
Give me a hug,
double
man. Give me a fucking hug, man.
Ah, double rainbow.
Who knew there was so many fucking blues, man? So yeah, so that was a cool moment. That was actually my favorite part of the episode. Was how bummed out and excited you simultaneously got over a fucking paint store. That was amazing.
Okay, let's. All right, so there's one more major scene here that's worth talking about, and maybe.
Wait,
kind
before
of
you say that, I
just
just want to say thank you, Dodd. Dodd did say, "Don't worry too much. People change their expectations depending on the game." So I do appreciate that. That does make me feel, a little bit better. That not to say that I'm going to all of a sudden go back to traditional CraigMakk OCD, like, try to collect everything and pick up everything. But the idea of being able to, at least be a little bit more like not, critical path the game, I appreciate that. So cool. All right. So Jess, you were saying,
yes,
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
And this is so this is going to be to me, this scene is the meat of anything that we've just played through in this episode of 2 and 3, right?
Okay.
This is like our first like substantive discussion, probably. Not the first. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Apple Store, but this is the one where like you start to get into, all right, the confrontation with the protesters. So you got
Right.
this group of people out here who feel like they've been disenfranchised, like lost their jobs that used to be human jobs that are now taken over by androids.
Right.
So this is a couple of things to talk about. First, we'll just talk about how did that make you feel as you were playing through it? What were like kind of your emotions? And you gave us kind of a hint already while we were playing through, but if you want to expand on any of that. And then we can get into whether it was good writing or the possible analogies it goes to, if
Right.
it is making an analogy. But as you, what were your initial thoughts on it as it was happening?
So it to me felt it just seemed so fucking over the top of like okay, yes, I get it, you'd be mad and whatever, but like in the same way that like you can be annoyed and protest anything. Like I mean, obviously like the Klan goes outside and protests, like people of color getting jobs too. So it's like, I'm not saying the protest part seemed crazy. That actually makes sense to me because that's happening all the time right now. But the idea that just like it kind of was bothering me that that it took so long for somebody to step in, like a police officer, because anytime there's a protest, there's going to be police there, right? Because that has the potential to, it's obviously it's an incendiary
Right.
situation. It's very easily can be sparked into a confrontation. So you're always going to have like the law is always going to be there to try to prevent that clash of the two sides, right? So the fact that it took like this robot was getting the shit beat out, or I keep saying that this android's getting the shit beaten out of him, like it just seemed so over the top that they were just that pissed. Because in my head I'm like, either you perceive that he's a person and now you're just beating up a guy, so then you're just pieces of shit. Like then you're just as bad as any racist or sexist or whatever, that you're just like, oh, like I don't know, fucking Hispanics are taking my jobs and I'm just gonna kick this this man who looks like he might be from Mexico because I'm just angry. And then I feel nothing. I don't feel any like that's just you're just a traditional villain if you're that guy. And if on the other hand you're just like, oh, this is just a robot that's taking my job. Back to the point that I made before, if it's just a fucking computer that's taking your job, that is literally the same thing as if you just walked up and said, this machine that drills this fucking bit into a fucking car that I used to do, and now it does it, I'm going to go in and fucking drop an elbow on it like I'm, fucking Hulk Hogan. You just look like an asshole because you're just beating up a fucking piece of machinery. So like at that point, it's like either end of the spectrum, it just seems like you're either like a shitty fucking villain asshole, or you're just a shitty fucking asshole. But like,
so now what you described is definitely a good summation of somebody that would do this in real life or basically you're breaking down why somebody that would do this is just completely out to lunch, like why their logic is fucked up. So
Right.
Then I'm asking you though, do you think it's still believable that people, like a real human being, might still act this way?
So yes, is it believable that people would act that way? Absolutely. I mean, people act like that literally today. Like 2018,
Right.
we have watched this
Right.
happen multiple times where people are just like, I'm just going to go out and start beating up, fucking anyone, because insert reason here, right? Like, I used to work at a coal factory and they closed it, so I'm going to start beating people up now. Like, I used to fucking this and they did that, so now I'm going to beat people up. Like, I'm white and they're not, I'm going to beat those people up. Like, that part is not it's not even remotely not believable. I guess
It's
more
likely.
it's actually it's actually more.
By the way,
yeah.
as to your other point, the taking your rage out on a robot, there is a famous, like, it's a comic strip, like, I forgot which comic strip it was, but I don't remember which one it was, but basically the premise was some character walks by like a table and fucking like bumps their fucking leg on the table, and he goes, son of a bitch, and fucking an inanimate object caused that. So now I've got all this fucking pent up like frustration and rage, and only an inanimate object to unleash it on. It makes no sense to do that to an inanimate object, right? And then he stops for a second, and the character goes, well, fortunately, I'm not a rational person, and just goes ahead and kicks the fucking table or whatever it is anyway. Right. And that just like encapsulates, a lot of human action to me as well.
Which, look, so, like, full disclosure, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that I am against, like, stubbing my toe and then kicking the shit out of, like, a fucking, like, a table because I stubbed my toe on it, right? Like, I've certainly done it, and I'm going on record as saying probably 99% of the people that I know have also done that, right? Like, you fucking knocked into a wall and then punched the wall because you're fucking angry at the wall, and that's fucking stupid, but there is a weird change, right? There's a substantial difference that takes place when you transition from, I stubbed my toe on my, pool table, so now I'm going to fucking, kick it because I'm mad, and then immediately realize, I just actually hurt my foot more, so I shouldn't have done that, but I still did it, right? There's a change from that to a thing that is, at this point now, like, personified enough to become close enough to a person where, it's the difference between people that are like, man, I will absolutely go into a bathroom and I'm not saying me, but although I'm also whatever. So I'm saying people will go into a bathroom and masturbate by themselves, but most people won't go and get a sex doll and have sex with that. Right? Because there's a difference. There's like a change. You're objectively doing the same thing, but you are subjectively crossing a barrier that makes it too real and too uncomfortable, and you have to deal with the feelings that creates, right? And so again, the same thing, like kicking a Roomba is dumb, but doesn't make you feel bad as a person. It just makes you feel like that was stupid that I just kicked a Roomba, like it didn't do it. There's no purpose for that. Versus beating the shit out of a robot that is in every conceivable way, or an android that in every conceivable way comes across as being a person, other than the fact that it is just not a person, is like there's like a line you have to cross to do that. So that's where I feel like it's
still believable, though, right?
It is believable.
There's very believable people are out there that would do that,
right?
Even if they believe that androids are really do feel feelings, they're frustrated.
They would still do it anyway. Absolutely.
Like, I don't want you motherfuckers on this earth because you're taking my job.
And again, that gets back to, like I said, people are doing that to other actual people,
right?
So clearly they would do it to robots. The one thing I would just say that scene seemed like, from an actual, just the way it was written standpoint, it was like, I guess the easiest way to say it is, like, I'm not 100% sure if I think they earned it, like, because I feel like it happened. Yes, I understand that they've established that there's already this pent up like issue and shit like that people already have these concerns and hatred and rage and whatever. But I guess, like, it did feel like it went from these people that were just outside basically picketing, like they looked like they were just teachers picketing because they wanted, increased pay, and then all of a sudden they were like, fuck it, beat the shit out of this guy. Like, it just, there was no, like, the story didn't necessarily build to that. It just kind of happened. And again, I guess you could make the argument like, well, but they've already implied all this shit already exists. But yes, like, implication is not the same as good writing, right? It's like, just because you showed me scenes of, like, people hate robots doesn't now mean that you can, like, at any point in time just have somebody walk up and hit a robot with a bat and make it be okay. That still could be bad writing. Like, I'm not saying that was bad writing, but I am saying that
seemed... What's your honest opinion? Do you feel like that was... Do you feel like that was okay? So Dodd said you could have like alluded to it more by somebody losing his job, but all right. So I saw it the other way, right? I didn't mind the writing on this because, to me, the game built up there. All right, so there was a little tension in the scene with Connor. You know, he walks in, the cop's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Let me do my job." And then you don't know if it's so. You almost at that point, especially because they're dealing with a malfunctioning robot, you're like, "All right, well maybe this is contained to like cops specifically because they just don't think androids can do the job, right?" Or they're like, and there seems to be distrust because like they're investigating a fucking malfunctioning android. Another android comes in, right? So there's maybe that. Then they flash to this, scene. They flash to this Apple store, and all of a sudden, like, robots are like cell phones. Everybody's like, "Yay, get yourself a robot!" And it all seems happy, and and then then you go to this robot who's just like going about his business, doing these robot-y, like, happy things. I'm walking through a park. There's robots helping people jog. Oh, look, I'm going to get paint from a paint store. I just paid for it. Really cool. Mind to mind. And you're living in this, like, happy-go-lucky robots are making things more efficient world. And then, boom, all of a sudden, this fucking crowd out of nowhere, like you heard in the background protesting about some shit. And all of a sudden, like, you happen to walk across the wrong person, which really could happen. Really, you just happen to be the trigger that one of these motherfuckers has been out there protesting all day, and he's not feeling heard, and he's not feeling fucking, and all of a sudden, like, that fucking factory worker just fucking, like, well, you motherfucker, you caught me on the wrong fucking day. And so now you go for, and again, like, that's focusing a lot more on trying to build the motivation for the workers to lose their shit,
right? Or for the average person, to lose their shit, right? Yeah.
Where for me, the point of the scene wasn't like those guys were a vehicle to take you into the mind of the android, not the android to take you into the mind of the frustration for the workers. But, so when this guy, when they pull him aside, like, to me, it was his world being interrupted, where he's just going about his day, and all of a sudden, fuck, I'm getting bullied. You know what I mean? You're like, that took me from, and I've told you, I went into this thinking these are just fucking robots. They don't have souls. I kind of had that attitude, and in that moment, all of a sudden, watching him kind of go through that, I felt for this thing. Right. So I thought it was, and it's not a hard thing to do in those circumstances. That kind of scenarios played out, and you could say that it's easy writing, but it did the job for me effectively. It got it done.
And so I do agree that clearly the idea was not to get you in, like you said, in the mind of the pissed off workers. It is to get you to empathize with the android that you are playing as. And so doing that, it was effective in that it did make you feel a feeling for, even I will say, some of the things that some people hate, and sometimes I hate, and sometimes I like. It depends. It's literally a toss-up. But he's been doing it for years. Is his gameplay mechanic of the like press L1 and press up to like stand up, and then double tap on X to try to like all those things. Like sometimes people think that's the worst, and I actually sometimes think it's like overdone, and other times I like it. But like in that moment where you're like trying to stand up, instead of it just being like, oh, just press up and he stands up. Like the fact that they make you kind of struggle a little bit as your guy's like, not that he's struggling to get up because obviously he's a fucking android, he could just stand up. Almost that he's like intentionally not getting up right away and getting back in that guy's face like, what now, bitch? I'm a fucking android. I can obviously stand up to getting like knocked down, and now I'll fuck you up. Like the fact that it was almost this moment of like that deference of, I'm going to struggle to get up because it's just going to only make it worse, right? And that's the idea that it is very much, and like, again, I've said this before. We talked about this on a separate episode that people will hear coming up. But like, obviously, as a white male, this is not a thing that I'm like great at, like dipping a toe into. But at least I can say that I have 100% like empathy and understanding of whether or not I have the same, feeling for, but the idea of, the sympathy for.
Empathy is when you felt it before.
Right. That's what I mean. Yes, I have sympathy for, and I understand the idea of like where people would say for years like, if you're a minority in a situation where like a bunch of shitty ass white people come and confront you and like push you down, like just getting back up might just make it worse, right? And so we always tell our kids like, oh, just like it's not who pushes you down, it's like what you get back up from and all this stuff, right? And these ideas of saying to somebody like that people have lived their entire lives feeling like sometimes getting back up will make the next push will be 10 times harder because it's almost like it's an affront to that person that you didn't just lay down, that you got back up and actually showed them that you're a human being that can also stand back up is like more, it's worse than if you said like fuck you to them, right? And so
By the way, that understanding is super enlightened for somebody that like, and until you said that, it's really funny. Until you actually said that, and you said that you really haven't experienced a situation like that, where getting back up isn't the thing that you necessarily want to do right away. Like, to me, it was almost inconceivable that's not something that somebody normally experiences.
Right.
That's like a part of my world is always making that calculation.
Right. Is it worth to get up or not? Right. Like, and yeah, is it worth to push back? Is it worth to, is it worth to stand up to somebody? And like the idea.
I'm also hard-headed as fuck, so I always do the stupid shit. But it is something that you do have to worry about. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm saying like, yes, to rein that back just a tiny bit. Yes, I'm like as an intelligent person, there are circumstances where I've had that, like, I've made that distinction because I'm like, oh, this person looks crazy. Talking back to them doesn't seem, even if I'm right, don't talk back because it's not. So I've definitely had the moment of like calculating my risk on, is this worth it or not? Like, am I going to yell at this guy at the stop sign because he looks like he might pull a gun out and shoot me? I've had that moment, but I'm specifically saying in this situation, if I'm relating it to the idea of being a targeted minority, because whether or not it is because of your race, your gender, your religious beliefs, or it's because you're a fucking android in this case. If you're a targeted minority, it's a different thing when you have to calculate based on, not because I think, oh, this man might be crazy or maybe he has a gun or whatever, but just because I'm like, he already comes into this with such rage against me that, like, is it worth it for me to stand up, even though I objectively know I'm right? And stand up is a metaphor, right? For, is it stand up off the ground because you got knocked down, or just assert yourself, whatever the case may be? Like, I get that, and so I like that they at least that part was effective to me. The idea of kind of made you work for it, like you had to work to get up, and you could tell that it was like that. It was slow, it was deliberate, it was, how fast should I get up? That's not being a dick, but not laying on the ground and just continuing to get beaten up. Like, at what degree can I get up without? Maybe it will be. I'm a little bit showing some deference without being a total like fucking asshole, but also not like turning my just getting into crouch mode and just saying keep kicking away. So I thought that was a cool gameplay idea. Whether or not he was actually intending, maybe I'm ascribing too much meaning to that, and maybe that's just how he does everything and he can't not do that, but I'm giving him benefit of the doubt here. That part was cool.
Well, I mean, at some point, like they said in Life is Strange, right? Separate the art from the artist.
Right.
So, it doesn't matter if he did it intentionally or he didn't. Like, if fucking Jackson Pollock fucking
right?
Yes. And
right.
threw fucking paint on a paint, and it's still good painting. Who gives a fuck how we got there? It's there, and it is. So what you described, I think, is valid, whether or not he intended it that way. That's
right.
It's just good. It's good that it's there.
Right.
So another thing I want to kind of point out real fast is like, so critics of this, like your brother, I'm sure, and maybe Dodd.
Pounding on him, huh?
No, well, just because the things that Wacker in that off mic conversation that we had with him, while we were
that I wish we recorded.
Oh, did we?
No, I said I wish we did. Actually, I think it would have been valuable. I think it would have been a valuable discussion to at least have his discussion, or his point of view.
We could get him on one of these future episodes for this game on the Twitch. But so one of the things that he might say is that he didn't like the whole, like, the obviousness of, like, oh, this analogy to, like, the migrant workers or illegal or undocumented workers getting fucked up by mobs that are pissed off you took our jobs. And he's like, it's just such like maybe like a condescending analogy or like something like that. And I think this is one of those instances where this situation is a different beast. While it of course is analogous to the immigrants coming in and they took our jobs thing that's going on with the Tiki Torch welding fun people that we have in the U.S. Right. But the mob here also specifically has another dangerous element for the android in that this is, so you kind of alluded to this, right? It's an inanimate object, right? And so
no, it's not inanimate. That's the whole thing.
Right. I'm sorry, not inanimate, right? Good correction, right? It's not alive, right?
Right.
And so it's just a robot, doesn't have feelings, and if it doesn't have, you don't believe it has feelings, then what's the point of fucking it up? Now here's kind of my theory on why zombie shit is. Like zombie movies, why the zombie craze is so popular with people, right? And if you think about it, it's like the zombie genre allows people to live out this fantasy of becoming these super fucking effective killers where they're just wiping out hordes of zombies, right? Chopping off their heads, fucking mauling them with fucking cars with spikes on them, like doing all kinds of unimaginable things to them, like as this fucking badass killer without the guilt of doing this to somebody is doing this a lot. We talked about the zombie genre too, why we love Inglourious Bastards, how they're doing, our heroes are doing horrible things to people, but fuck it, they're Nazis. Fuck them, they deserve it, right? And it's just kind of like, so
it lets you off the hook. It lets you off the hook of,
and you can live out
feeling anything,
Right, and you can live out this, like, I'm going to just take out my rage and be the shittiest person I would never be to a real human being, but it's okay because it's a fucking android. And you saw that, like, in Westworld, right? Like, these people go out and live out rape fantasies on androids, and I'm just like, and I alluded to this, it's like, I can't even if you gave me the option to do that, why the fuck would I take no joy of a fucking rape thing? You know, like, why would I ever want to rape somebody? I don't know why I'd want to rape an android. It's not fun to me. It's not fun to hear somebody going, no, no, no.
Yeah, well, I guess also Westworld is also probably even worse because so far in this show, at least, or in this game, at least in the scenes that we saw, just like with that guy or with like Connor or whatever, like they are, if they're not deviant, they seem to be in every way very much like a, hello, yes, I'm here to pick up the paint. Thank you. Okay, goodbye. Whereas like Westworld, for all intents and purposes, even the ones that are not self-aware, at least up until they are aware, believe that they are people until they are, you know, until they realize that they are creatures of their programming. Which at that point, it's like, if you're straight up just like murdering or raping somebody who, as far as they're aware, is straight up like, I'm alive, you're a fucking psychopath. So it's like, so like that, I don't like you're a psychopath if you do that shit to one of these things, just because it's the same. It's very similar to the way that like you know, serial killers when they're young, like fucking murder, murder animals and shit. It's like you're doing it to play out a fantasy that is like it's a stepwise process to get. Yeah, it's a stepwise process to eventually desensitize yourself to get to the point where you can do it to a fucking human being. So like. This at this point is literally, it's like you are an incremental step away. If you're willing to do it to a thing that in every conceivable way looks and acts exactly like you, but you are given the one loophole that, oh, don't worry about it, they just like don't, you know, they're not a person, so it's fine. It's like, well, that is the same shit that was done to like, why, that's why like white people were able to enslave black people, right? Because they were able to be like, no, don't worry, because they're not actually people, because they're like, you know, they're like, you know, they're basically animals. So it's like not a big deal. Like you wouldn't feel bad if you did that to a fucking ape. Also, sidebar, you should probably feel pretty shitty if you did that to an ape, too. You should probably feel shitty if you did that to a fucking dog. Like if you beat the shit out of your dog, no one looks at you and it's just like, oh, it's just a dog though, so it's cool. Like we're also like, hey, guess what? You're going to jail because that's a fucking, like, that's a living thing. It feels something, whether or not it feels it on a different level that we do or not, you're still a fucking psychopath. And in reality, we have all accepted there are certain things where we're just like, it's just not cool to do because you're fucking crazy if you do it. Like whether or not it's actually as bad as, you know, murder or whatever, is fucking inconsequential. The problem is you're just a fucking asshole that you're doing it, and you're trying to give yourself an out to do shitty things because you think this, like the object that you're doing it to, you're rationalizing that it's not feeling it in the same way. I mean, it's, you know, it's also
along the lines of that point, the other thing is this mob mentality of these people. It's funny because, you know, the disenfranchised in a lot of like culture. I mean, I'm sorry, not necessarily disenfranchised. The people who are frustrated about their financial situation, or like, you know, when they look for somebody to blame and they're angry, there's bonding together, right? Like people have alluded to the human, like racism would be over if we got attacked by aliens. Because then everybody would be like, well, all right, now I have another fucking common thing that all of us we can fucking channel our rage on, and every time some shit goes wrong, we can blame everything on that thing, right? And so, like in a way, this mob mentality allowed these people, like, actually, you saw this. I was very disappointed with a lot of minorities, you know, during when we went to war with Iraq and Afghanistan, and a lot of like historically disenfranchised minorities turned around and started being prejudiced toward Middle Eastern people. You know, and so like you see like these people, like it's funny, you see people of like men, women, different fucking skin tones, and they're turning around and ganging up on this android because it's, you know, it's something that unites them, makes them feel better, makes them.
They
feel
can be like, well, at least we all hate this motherfucker, so so let's all be a dick, right?
Despite their shitty situation, they can blame it on somebody, so the rage is there. So anyway, I just thought all of these different aspects to me made this good writing. You know, it's not the next American great novel, but it was good enough that while I was playing through this, I definitely felt something, and I didn't feel like, oh, this is fucking cheesy. Why is David Cage making me do this? It's dumb as fuck. You know what I mean?
So I will say, because you actually did point it out, like when you were like, oh, I'm sure that like, you know, that like Whacker or Dodd or whatever would say about the writing or whatever, or the analogy, right? I would say this chapter, more than obviously anything we've played up to this point, was like very heavily on the nose to me. That it's like, okay, so this is an analogy for the treatment of, you know, insert whether it is, you know, minorities, of, you know, like whether it is, you know, like treatment of black people, treatment of, you know, like you said, migrant workers, whether like whatever it is, it becomes almost impossible for me to divorce the idea away from, is this just about, you know, I know we talked about last time, like,
because you shouldn't, because that's part of the history of when when we have to real life make these decisions about androids. You got to learn from your history,
right? But what I will say though too is then that is the part where it gets very dangerous to me. Like hammer the nail into your face on the nose. Yes, I do agree. So yeah, Dodd just said, so this is like not just hitting the nail, but it's hammering the nail onto your nose. But like the idea, this is where it gets a little bit dangerous for me, and this is where I start to get not skeptical, because that's too strong yet, because I haven't gotten too far into the game, but I start to get nervous, is because I'm not sure. Okay, not even now that I'm not sure. Let me roll it back. Okay, so if you're going, if like you said, you shouldn't divorce those two things, and this should be, all of that stuff should be on your mind. The civil rights movement, and, you know, the treatment of minorities, and the treatment of, you know, the gender mistreatment over the years, the, you know, the sexual identification mistreatment that is still ongoing in 2018, including all the way up to our president and whatever. Like all of that stuff, if you should keep that in mind as you're continuing to play this game, because it is what's preparing you for what's happening in this game, right? Then what has to be part and parcel with that, what has to go lockstep with that, is you have to be, number one, incredibly educated about those original, you know, those struggles that took place in the past, number one. Number two, incredibly knowledgeable about how to portray those things, because if you're going to be an analogy for those things, you cannot just tell it in the way that like a fifth grader who's like, yeah, I read the chapter that talks about the civil rights movement, so I'm going to say, hey, look, here's the thing where all the androids go and say, you know, like hold their hands up in the air like they're, you know, like Black Panthers or something like that, and then a man gets assassinated on the stage. Look, oh, check it out, it's almost exactly like when, like, if you do that, then it's going to be shitty, because these are too delicate, too important, too serious topics to just treat with like a get it, oh, look at it, oh, I even made the android a black guy too, so you understand that it's really about the fact that he's black. I'm like, no, that's okay, that is like high school writing. That's not what I want from somebody who's going to try to tell those stories, because they are so important and they are so easily like misrepresented or mistold, or, you know, like it, like not you know, handled with the gravity or the treatment that they deserve. And so that, I'm not saying that he's done that yet. I'm just saying that is the thing.
Well, let me ask you that direct question. How do you feel so far? I mean, like, you know, so you've been playing it so far, and you run into this. Did it do what it was intended to do? Do you feel the way do you think the author wanted you to feel?
That I do feel like the way that I think he has made me, at least in my head, think about the things that I think he wants me to, right? So I at least I think like he has, the triggers that he has tried to establish have correctly triggered the thoughts in my head, right? The issue becomes, do I think he did it effectively? That right? Do I think he did it well versus, obviously there's plenty of ways you can just, like you can dog whistle your way to all this shit and just like say all types of shit that triggers all types of emotions. It doesn't mean you did it well. It just means you effectively did it. Effective and successful, or doing it the right way is not the same thing as doing it effectively. Because you and I could also just say, like, check it out, there's like a picture of Mein Kampf on his table, get it? And like we'd be like, okay, yeah, so you effectively triggered Nazism in that story. Right. Doesn't necessarily mean that you did it well. It just means that you fucking put a picture of fucking Adolf Hitler next to a book of Mein Kampf. It's like, I get it. So the one thing I would say so far, that was the first time where I got a little bit nervous. Like I got a little nervous about that moment with the protesters and everything. Where I was like, all right, it wasn't terrible. I didn't think it was terrible by any stretch of the imagination. It was definitely like, I hope you progress more in the story. Like you don't just lean on insert trope of a thing you've seen happening right now to Hispanic people, but now it's an android. Insert thing that you've seen happen to a black person, but now it's an android. If he's just going to do that, that I think is yeah. Go ahead.
These things repeat over time, though. If you look at what has happened to immigrants, right? I mean that it was done to black people. It was done to the Irish. It was done to Italians. When they, like all of these, there's only a limited number of ways you can harass people. Right?
I agree.
And
I agree.
We just seem to keep repeating it. So you're asking him to come up with some new creative way of torturing somebody or fucking with somebody or venting your frustrations. I don't think that's the point of the game. The game is, I mean, first of all, it's like I'm not really holding the game to the same standard that I would necessarily a movie.
Of course, that's impossible. They're not at that level. I mean, that's not, that's not
what he's trying to
agreeable.
Do. I thought this was like he's setting the pace of like there's androids. This is what they do. This is their normal day, and there's people that are fucking pissed off at them. And oh shit! In case you were thinking of this guy as just a machine up to this point, watch what happens now. Like watch the shit that this machine is to go through now, and tell me if you're watching and going, oh well, who gives a fuck? It's still a robot, or if you're starting to feel a little bit of sympathy for this thing.
Right. No,
so he got that accomplished.
And I hear you on that, right? And I agree with you in the premise. I agree with your premise that yes, history repeats itself. We've done this too. We were like, I don't know, man. Like, I hate insert group here. Oh, this group is new now. Me and group A that I used to hate, let's gang up against group B and do the same shit we did to you, but now you're on our side because you're not the lowest rung on the totem pole, right? We have certainly done that, right? We have certainly done that. And I agree with you on all that.
We do it repeatedly.
Absolutely. I mean, we're doing it. We're doing it right now. Like, so I get that part, right? But also, like, if you're just going to take the lowest common denominator of like human, like, of humanity, right? Of just the way humans treat each other, and have that be your storytelling trope, then I don't know. Like, my thing is, storytelling should take a better approach. It should try to hold itself to a higher, to a higher standard than just being like, that thing you saw that humans do, I'm just going to retell that, but just insert a new thing now. Because at that point, then, like if somebody just took a story about, like, the story of Martin Luther King and just replaced Martin Luther King with a blue alien that showed up and said, hey, I'm going to try to, like, fix humanity, and then all the exact same things happened, I guarantee you right now, there is not a single human being on the planet that cares about good fiction or good storytelling and would say, that was an amazing story. Because they would just be like, you just took fucking Martin Luther King's story and replaced it with a goddamn blue alien. That's fucking ridiculous.
And just like people did with what you call it. So it's really good you brought it up because, like, what's the fucking shit with the blue people? Super popular movie. One of the highest grossing of all time.
Oh,
Blue
Avatar.
Took fucking Dancing with Wolves, right?
No, but most people actually shitted on that. Most people did shit on that. People loved the way that it looked. No, people loved the way that it looked, and they thought that it was amazing. Remember, that movie made a fuckload of money because it was like the first movie to do 3D well, and it was technically amazing looking, right? But almost immediately. almost immediately there was a backlash of people being like, you just fucking did Dancing with Wolves and made them be a fucking like people were like
The Last Samurai, which
absolutely.
This story keeps repeating, right?
Which also, by the way, people made fun of Dancing with Wolves and they were like, oh, you just took The Last Samurai and made it be about with a white guy, and all of a sudden now it's like, I think it's that way, but it could be okay. Well, then it's that. But the point is, people talk shit about that all the time because that lowest common denominator shit. Yes, is it effective because the original story?
Avatar's a shit movie.
I mean, honestly, I thought it was good the first time I saw it, specifically because of the technical aspect of it. But Avatar is actually, if you go back and watch it, and you're not watching it in 3D in a movie theater, that movie is fucking garbage. Like, it is just not. It's not.
All right, so garbage is a strong word because, again, so I agree that it doesn't take a genius to just fucking repackage an old story.
Absolutely.
And put it in. So I guess what I'm focusing on is, and this is a good question Dot asked, is the game supposed to be fun? Did you have fun? And as you were playing through this, you were looking at a video game, you didn't know what was going to happen in the story, the game made you think about some shit that's going on in real life, and like, did you have fun playing it through, or was it interesting enough at this point? You know, we're not that far into the story where you could say, oh my god, it was an amazing time buying paint and going to a park.
Right.
You know
no,
what I mean?
so I can answer that. Right, I can answer that, and actually, I think those are two very separate questions. So, let me first answer yours, and then I guess I'll go back and answer his, because I think those are different questions. Avatar is hot garbage, he said, and Last Samurai is great, so I do agree. So Last Samurai is amazing. That's actually probably the best of all those by far. But anyway, to answer your question, did I have fun? Yes, I did have fun playing that. Like, I didn't hate that, even though, yes, it is go buy fucking paint and then get kicked and try to stand up. Like, you know what you're getting into when you play his games, that sometimes it is the mundane shit that you do that makes the game feel more real, because it is not like a Call of Duty where you're like, run, kill, run, kill, run, kill,
right.
kill,
beat
run, kill, right, beat this boss. Right, it's definitely not that. So like, you know what you're getting into, and I enjoy this. So I thought this was fun, even though we accomplished fucking 7 minutes of. I mean, I literally think I pushed forward for about 4 minutes, and then I pressed fucking L1 and X twice, and then the fucking thing was over. So like, so this isn't the easiest mission or chapter to talk about like how much fun it was, and it was still fun to me. That's part A. Part B, to like Dodd's original point, but isn't a game supposed to be fun? I actually don't necessarily think that is a requirement of a game, because in the same exact way that like I have watched like Schindler's List and loved the fuck out of that movie, and that movie is not fun. It is fucking terrible. You
makes
walk
you
out of
feel
that,
horrible.
you feel like a piece of fucking shit when that movie is over, and I still watched it and I love that movie. Now, am I like, hey everyone, come over, we're having fucking movie night, let's all gather around and watch Schindler's List? Fuck
like,
no.
I don't want to go through that again. Yeah.
No, but even like the opening to Saving Private Ryan, I've watched that movie multiple times because it looks amazing, and it is still depressing and not fun to watch. And he's saying it's an entertainment product, though, and so is Schindler's List. So is fucking. These are all forms of entertainment. Entertainment meaning it is supposed to. It is entertainment is not that it's supposed to be entertaining to you. It is things that you do to pass the time, to keep to you know. To cause a reaction, to cause some type of reaction. Just like horror movies are not, you're not like, this is fun to watch a horror movie. They're supposed to be. If they're fun, it's not probably having the effect of being scary in the way that they're trying to go after. Just like you read fucking scary books because of the shock that it gives to your system. Just like when I played, you know, when I play fucking half of like Heavy Rain, when you're like trying to not die or have the like, you know, have the kid be murdered, that was not fun. That was stressful as fuck. It was actually, you know, that was like, go all the way back, playing Mega Man, which is fucking hard, or fucking like old school fucking Ninja Gaiden is not fun because it's annoying because you die a million times. Everyone who loves Dark Souls is not fun because you die every 5 seconds, and then you constantly have to like reload and learn from your fucking mistakes, and half the time you're throwing your fucking controller against the wall. But it is entertaining, even if it's not fun, because you're learning something, you're advancing the story, you're engaged in a different way. Maybe you're learning something about yourself, about the way you play games. Like, so I don't necessarily think, like, I think the concept actually, and this is a fundamental failure in the concept of the word, like, game that we call, like, oh, I played this video game. Like, game implies that you're like, oh, gather around, everyone, we're going to play a game because it's fun, is like, it is... They don't need to be. They just need to generate a reaction. And if that reaction is like discomfort or anger or, you know, like sadness or whatever, like, I mean, I've played... I played Gone Home, and that game is fucking amazing. It's not fun at all. Like, you learn something about yourself and how you interact with, like, people that are different from you, and, like, how like, handling family matters and shit like that, and, like, coming to grips with, you know, like, how families are all fucking dysfunctional. I was never like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm having a great old time here watching this family fucking crumble. Like, Oh, you didn't like that?
I didn't like it. No, I didn't like it for the reason of me saying, like, this... The trying to show you the side of how hard it is for a young woman
to come out
is a medium that I would have rather experienced, not through one where I run around the house and just find old notes and shit like that. Like, I could see how you would like it.
True.
For me, it wasn't.
I hear you. But there are plenty of other things similar to that. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of the game. I believe it's called Sybil, but it's basically a game where you play. It's almost like a desktop simulator, which is the concept of, like, you are logging into this. You're logging into a computer, right, like a laptop, and playing a game on this laptop. It's almost like an MMO, and throughout the course of the game, you are uncovering this girl who you are playing on her laptop. This girl who is kind of like playing this game also with this other kid, and you find out she's like in high school or something like that, and she kind of like comes out to him, like, not comes out to him, like, you know, meaning like out of the closet or anything. Like, she basically tells him that she likes him, and maybe like throughout the course of the game starts, like, she sends him pictures of herself and like tries to start, and then he basically takes advantage of her, like sends pictures out and like kind of ruins her life, and then she's dealing with, and this is all like throughout the course of this game. It's a very hard way for me to explain it. That's probably not making it sound interesting to anyone, but you should look it up. It is amazing. It's incredible because it is like this very weird voyeuristic, you know, peek behind the curtain of what it's like, you know, whether it's to be specifically, I mean, to me, I viewed it as to be a young girl trying to, like, engage with guys and not be treated like shit, and trying to find your place, and, like, realizing how fucking hard that must be, especially in an age right now where your whole fucking life is out there on the internet already. And so, like, nothing about that game was fun, in that I was never, like, cheering as I was like, yeah, send those fucking half-naked pictures out that she just sent to the world so her life is ruined. But, like, I learned so much and I had such an enlightening moment, like, going through that it was amazing. I mean, the game To the Moon is another game. I can give examples all day. Is a game about a man who's about to die and forget. And,
yeah, that's a T-shirt. That's a Live from the Man Cave T-shirt. CraigMakk. I could give examples all day. Live from the Man Cave.
Right, exactly. But To the Moon is another game I highly recommend. If you have a PC, this is a game that you should check out. It's a game about an elderly man. If anyone has ever seen the movie Eternal Sunshine, The Spotless Mind, the idea of, like, going in and erasing people's memories. This is about a man who's about to die. He had always wanted to go to the moon. His wife died. He is on his deathbed, and he goes to this company that their whole thing, what they do is they implant memories to make you have your like your dream, right? It's like your kind of whatever your dream was that you never were able to accomplish. They can go into your brain and implant it so you can die with having this memory of having accomplished it, you know. And so there's this man who always wanted to go to the moon with his wife. He was never able to do it. She's now dead, and you play the people that are going into his brain and trying to help him have this memory before he dies of going to the moon. And obviously throughout the course of it, you learn all these things about his relationship with his wife and all these things. You go back and see him when he was little, he first met her, all the way up to, you know, right before she died. And it's like, I'm not kidding when I tell you it is fucking heartbreaking. I mean, it is a game where I had to take breaks from playing because I was like, I just actually fuck this game. I can't play it right now because it's actually making me feel feelings in a way that I just am not equipped to deal with right now. But it was fucking amazing, and it was like something that I can hands down recommend to any single person on the planet. You should play. So again, back to the game that we're talking about, and to Dodd's original point, I don't think a game needs to be fun or entertaining in that regard to be good. I also can say I am nervous, or I can see why people could be nervous about this game's ability if it goes down. Like, they're at a branching path where I hope they get it stays where it is and gets better, but I can see if it goes more, if it just keeps going on the nose. And like I said, my examples before was like they just insert an analog for, like for Malcolm X here, and then they insert their analog for, the migrant worker battle here, and then they insert their battle for, for fucking women's liberation here. Like, at that point, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's still, you checked all the feels that I'm supposed to have, but also that's not great writing. You just took history and you did man cave Mad Libs with history. You just fucking erased a couple of words. You replaced them with Android. Good for you. That's cool. Like, still fun to play, but I can say a game can be fun and still have bad writing if that's what they do. Again, I'm just forecasting. Right. So I don't know.
That's a great point, because that's something I kind of wanted to allude to. And when we started this podcast, we said, all right, there's already a shit ton of established critics, right? They actually follow journalism career tracks and spend years seeing every movie in the theater, watching the classics, and all of that. And we said, Siskel and Ebert was the classics, classic critic that we used to talk about. These are the movie critics that this is our paradigm now. They tell you what is a shit movie, what's a good movie. And if you ever really listen to them, they do involve, they have intelligent discussions about, well, if you go back to the history of film and what was and I remember and us saying that's all well and fucking good, but if you want to get into the mechanics of that kind of shit, right? But to me, that shit's not interesting. Is the kid who doesn't give a fuck about watching the black and white movies for and going back and studying film as a history. I just want to know, when I watch this, am I going to be entertained? Is it going to make me feel a certain way? Is it going to do the job? So the concept of discussing whether the guy is really a genius or whether he's just doing the easy shit, to me is kind of inconsequential for our podcast. Right. We can have those discussions, and they're not invalid discussions, but that is a different whether this guy is truly a genius is a different discussion from, is this shit worth 3 to 5 beer mugs and worth your time to fucking watch.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I am. So that's kind of the caution as we play through this game. And one more little side note that will help shape what I'm about to say, right?
Right.
Joe Budden recently in his podcast was talking about how he had to kind of really what helped him listen to the new Eminem album and really give it his he said he was able to enjoy it for the first time as a fan. Because now that he's retired from hip-hop,
right,
it kind of he used to look at everything through the eye of a creator, which he said makes it horrible. You listen to a song, you're like, oh, I would have done the beat break different here.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is a colorful, this is a nice melody, but it's not really structurally sound.
Right.
If he had done this,
You're always
and
biased.
when you do that, right, and you lose analyzing it, for sure, Casey was where the stream. Oh, yeah, nice. And that's kind of the point I'm making. We need to kind of, as we go through this video game, I don't want us to it's been kind of a running joke about focusing on whether David Cage is really great or he's not. Right. I really don't I would rather that we not spend too much time on trying to figure out whether he's brilliant. Let's just try to figure out whether this game is entertaining, and more importantly, let's enjoy what we can from it, because we're going to spend the time going through it and use the forum to talk about issues that are interesting to us.
Right.
So even if he does a shitty job, even if he makes a straight MLK reference that you're just oh, this was fucking over time, it's maybe worth a couple of minutes of us to say all right, that was kind of a shitty direct reference or whatever. But more importantly, what do you think about this choice that was made?
Right.
What would you do in this scenario? And that's where I think the value is.
Right. And honestly, full disclosure, part of the coolest part of this alone to me was if anyone got if anyone looks up any of those games that we just mentioned that were that are fucking not fun but are great games, and decides to go take a look and emails us back and says, man, I ended up playing fucking To the Moon, it was amazing.
Discord just now, right?
I
put that Discord link up there.
Yeah, that alone would be fucking awesome, right? So it's worth it. The sidebar conversations that we come out of in this entire discussion will be the fucking most interesting part of this, all the shit where we start going off the rails and talk about other things. So I do agree with you, the conversations are what make these playthroughs fun for us. The only thing I will say, back to your point that you just made about the like, oh, I don't want to get too much into whether or not he's like a genius or not. Look, clearly I'm also not debating whether or not he's a genius, because I don't think that's going to be even on the table in this discussion. I don't think anyone is coming out saying, oh my God, I finally realized David Cage is a genius. Like, I don't think that's a thing we have to worry about. I think it's just whether or not.
And by the way, Don, just know it's not your bad. That's not like for bringing that up. Like, it's definitely a worthy discussion. All
Absolutely.
I'm saying is, as we go forward.
No, we just want to. We just don't want that to be the like we spend an hour on that and then 2 minutes talking about whether or not the game was fun, right? That's not what we want to do on this. The only reason why I do say it is worth talking about is because, and this is the thing that I think is like it's the impossibility to ignore in this entire case, is when you decide that this is the world you're going to, this is the story you want to tackle, you get held to a higher standard. Because when you decide you're going to go after, racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, sexual identity discrimination, whatever it might be, because that is just that topic comes with other baggage that is associated with it, and rightfully so, things that need to be handled. When you choose to only focus on the parts that make your story easy to tell and not all the other shit that comes along with it, like, that's just like, you have to deal with the fallout from that. You have to deal with the people that are going to say, come on, man, like, don't, like, tell a fucking story then. If you want to just tell a fucking story, tell a fucking story. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. Tell whatever the fuck you want. But if you're going to use, and again, this is, I'm not speaking about me. I'm using this as what I've read and can imagine and understand what people have been very pissed about. It's like, when you're going to use shit that has actually happened to me, or shit that has happened to my family, or shit that has happened to people that came before me as the fodder for your story, but not even have the fundamental understanding or ability to deal with it justice, then you don't get to just say, oh, but I'm just telling a story, it's cool, right? And so, like, that's why it is
that's a different conversation. You're right.
Of course.
Yeah, that is a different scenario, and that's where you'd be well within your rights to be like, fuck him, because he brought this into play, and then he didn't completely, like, address all angles of it.
Right. And so that's the part where I'm like, we're never going to, and part of this just could be me being like, because I am hyper aware of it, that it's always going to be in the back of my mind, so I am going to, like, it's going to come up again, like, as much as we're going to say, let's not talk about it a lot, it's going to come up. I'm going to tell you, like, I know for a fact it's going to come up, and we will deal with it, and you and I get to come from two different ends of that spectrum to just, like, personally, like, with our background. So it's like, I think that is interesting and is valuable to people listening to this as well. That it's not like we're just two white guys or two black guys or two minorities of any case, right? Like, having, like, we're only touching on it from one point of view. At least we are coming from two ends and able to kind of have that discussion and have value in that discussion. And I think it's
we need to get
necessary.
Legal Fox in here for one of these.
Right, yeah, I think, honestly, I think there should be, like, I think the concept of having, also a female come in that can also can register when that starts coming, because I assume at this point, like, the Kara part, or Kara, or however you pronounce it, is it Kara? Kara?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Kara, whatever it is. When it comes to her, I'm assuming that part's also going to come into play, right? Maybe, I don't know, but maybe it'll kind of stay the course that they've done so far, but if the gender part comes into it, it would be interesting to also have, like, a female's perspective. But so it's like, it's hard to divorce that completely. But I do agree with you that, do we need to spend, 2 hours talking about that and then 5 minutes being like, but I guess I had a good time. All right, cool. See you next time on the next podcast. Like, no, we're not going to do that, because I think we've kind of covered some of that. But if he continues to do these things and have these conversations, I think we are well within our rights to at least touch on that and say, all right, well, hey, did you, like we've talked about on the show, we've established playing the net with the net down. That's kind of your thing that you've come up, that you established, and it's something that I've co-signed, and I totally agree. Like, within the show, is that we're like, if you're going to tell a story, like, at least invest enough to understand the story that you're telling, and make sure that when you do play with the net down, make sure you fucking do it judiciously in a way that fucking makes your story better. Because if it doesn't, just know that people like us are going to be like, come on, man. Like, that's just, you just fucking took the easiest possible way out, and that just makes everything else, it makes it difficult for me to take the other shit seriously, because you immediately made your story make less, like, have less of an impact, because you just fucking, invalidated half the fucking story that because you just ignored it. Like you ignored the part that makes fucking your story that makes sense or not. And so like I don't know. We'll see what he does. Like I said, a lot of this we're saying I'm forecasting because I don't know where it's going to go. I just feel like I kind of was like, I guess.
But so far,
so far up to this point, this is. I had a good time. Like I enjoyed that. I think that was it was a good tonal piece. It set the stage for where this game is going. It was actually. I would guess even more so. It would be interesting if we hadn't been playing it on. Like on this, like, hey, a week and a half passes since the last time we played, it probably would have been a very interesting counterpoint to that first crazy, like, intense first, hostage situation. Then you're immediately thrown into, like, oh, you're just going to buy fucking paint, which is, like, the coolest
Part
way
of that
to,
was
like...
almost anticlimactic because we waited so long to do this one. This is like looking forward to that next episode of Lost, and then you find out it's that little side story one.
Right, about the
that
fucking...
everybody hated.
About
Like,
the spider. Yeah, you're
week.
like, what?
Yeah, and they're like, son of a bitch. You know, which, by the way, the episode itself was really good. It's that you're pissed because you were waiting a whole week to find out what the fucking cliffhanger was on the last.
And it had nothing to do with anything, right? Yeah.
Right.
But no, I do think actually. So that is a thing. Now that I've actually just said that, I do feel like I should probably, restate. Probably one of the coolest things that he does do is make mundane shit be an integral and interesting part of the game because a lot of his games do focus on just real life, right? It's not a game in the traditional sense of like, oh, you're like the superhero doing superheroic shit constantly. Like he makes you go through shit where it's like, I don't brush your fucking teeth now and like go make breakfast for your son. Like those are things he does. And that is a cool moment of like, when you roll it back and you realize when you show that counterpoint, it makes the moments when like action and crazy shit happens be even more impactful. I mean, one thing I will throw out, and now that we're talking about other games we played, have you ever played The Darkness?
No, you told me about it though.
Yeah, so
where there's the monster in the dark and
the monster that's inside you that you're like possessed by, and it like comes out in the dark and attacks and whatever. There is a moment
about this on one of our prior podcasts.
Yes, I know. Okay, so we did. So one of the moments that I will say that is one of is well known that it won like all kinds of like awards, and when it came out, this specific scene won in terms of people being like, what an amazingly cool way to showcase a down moment in a game. There's a moment where you basically just go on, you have like a home date with your girlfriend, and the entire thing is you just have her come over, you like get her food, you sit down on the couch, and you like the prompts are like put your arm around her and like lean your head against her, and it's like we've talked about like girlfriend experience shit on this, whatever. Like that is the girlfriend experience in a game, in that it makes you objectively actually start to care about this character, and you get to have like a moment where you get to choose when do you get up from watching the movie. Like you're watching a movie on TV, you can watch the whole thing play out, or you can just say like, oh, I have to go. Like there's the the prompt, you can make him get up and kind of move on. And I don't remember at this point because it's pretty old now, but like if you get rewarded for like watching the whole thing. But I will say the fact that I don't remember means that like I definitely got the emotional reward for like sitting out and having that moment play out and like making this guy not just feel like a fucking superheroic monster that's just murdering people, bad guys constantly or whatever, but like he also has this like moment of downtime, and there is value to downtime making the action sequences make even more sense. You know what I mean? So like, yes, Dodd's right. That only happens once in that game versus like David Cage does that, constantly. He does. That's his thing. But again, if your point is to show peaks and valleys, lulls, and whatever, like that can still be effective. And at least in this case so far, that was a super effective lull, right, in a valley of a moment that made you feel like, oh, this is just a daily routine that then gets ramped up again when he gets beaten up. So like, if you just walked into getting beaten up, it wouldn't have had the same impact as you getting to walk through the park and seeing, like you said, robots helping each other run, helping humans run and stay in shape, and this guy's playing music, and you're like, oh, just shit's kind of fucking chill. Then all of a sudden, when you get kicked in the stomach, it really does
You're like,
actually
where the fuck
knock
is
the
that-
yeah, it
this
takes
guy
the
was having a nice day.
right. It knocks the wind out of you like like in more ways than one, right? It also, as a player, you're like, oh shit, okay, this is what they have to deal with. So I was like, that
Why
I
you
actually
gotta be
did
like
think that
that,
was
bro?
cool. Right? Yeah,
You're
and
like,
with your
why you gotta
shitty
be like
fucking. With your shitty fucking beard and man bun or whatever the fuck kind of hairstyle he had, I didn't like that guy at all. Fuck that guy.
One last thing
Yes, sir.
before we end, because we've been going for 2 hours on like
On
you
a-
said
on
Price.
7 minutes?
7 minutes. Yeah. But the hesitance of the cop to jump in, I thought was on purpose.
Okay.
It wasn't just like ignoring like why the fuck like it wasn't just like convenience that it took that long. There was a point that they made, and we kind of had insight into this like in the first chapter, right, where police, being a largely blue collar, police work is being also threatened and taken over by androids, right? In some sense. So when the protester turns to him and says, "Your job's next, motherfucker," right? The cop on one end clearly he feels uncomfortable with them kind of being rowdy and doing this shit. He's hesitant to step in because he obviously believes this is a piece of property.
Right.
In that he also says, "Hey, look," and it wasn't even spirited. It was like, "Look."
Oh no, he looks pretty bummed out that he has to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, if you have to keep doing this, I'm gonna run you in for destruction of personal property. So I think he's approaching this from like these fucking androids being here, like is causing this whole outrage and all these people. I think he sympathizes with the protesters, doesn't really want to jump in. He's seen that he lets them have their fun a little bit by kicking a machine. He doesn't really see, because he doesn't really want to take on a mob either, right?
But then eventually he's like, well, it is like somebody beating up a car, so I guess I should fucking stop them from fucking up the car because it is a piece of property. You're right.
If
that's
anything,
true.
I thought that accentuated that the welfare of androids is not high on the priority list of being protected by society.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, you're right. It does make sense that they, why he wouldn't have jumped in right away, and it was pretty clear immediately that that cop was pretty much like, all right, motherfuckers, like almost in the same way that we've all seen the movies where at like a in prison when there's like a fucking prison fight, those motherfuckers always let that shit go on for like 7 minutes before finally they're
Check
like,
out our way out.
all right, Branson, yeah, exactly, step away from fucking Roscoe, like, and you're like, man, what the fuck, you were standing right there, like you probably could have stopped the fight, like right after the first punch, yet you conveniently fucking turned around and started smoking right when he started fighting. So it's like, I guess you're right that was pretty much a representation of them being like, all right, cool, he fucked them up enough, but not enough where it's like, I'm going to have to write paperwork on what happens, so now I can step in and fucking say, I did my job, everything's cool, we're all good, right? So, you're right. I thought that was actually, I guess in retrospect, at the time, I was more just like, what the fuck, why is no one stopping this? But that was more because I was feeling like
that's a good natural reaction. That's probably like a good natural reaction for you to be like, look, nobody, they're just gonna let him beat him up,
right?
That means you're viewing this android as a human. Whereas, again, for me as a playing through the first time, I really didn't have that much sympathy for the android until this scene happened, and then I was just like, man, this is kind of just shitty. Right. I know, like, I don't know, I can't put my finger on reasoning, like, if I still think it's a robot or not, but I know I don't like this.
I don't like watching this, right? Which is ideally what this game is supposed to do, is to put you in the position of feeling it, right? As opposed to because we can all tell each other this constantly. We can all say to each other, like, well, wouldn't you feel shitty if, and then, of course, people will tribalize immediately and be like, well, no, I just wouldn't, because they're not fucking people, right? Like, you telling me that doesn't change my mind in the same way that we said before. Right, but now, or even like watching it, right? I mean, there's plenty of people that'll be like, I'll stand by and watch like a gay person get beaten up because I don't care because they're fucking, bad people or whatever, right? Like that's just a way people have felt and have done and before. Like
they've turned away from God.
Right, yeah. They've made this horrible decision and now they're paying for it or whatever their fucking stupid, horrible fucking bullshit justification for being assholes are, right? Then this shit is when you're put in the shoes of that person, it makes it a lot harder to feel that way, right? Like there's a very famous I believe it's a Twilight Zone episode of this like super fucking horrible racist piece of shit. Like asshole walks in, he's like super pissed because he like lost his job because like a Jewish guy got it, and he's like fucking going on and on about like, you know, saying slur this and fuck this guy that, and, you know, this Jewish piece of shit and all this bullshit. And then somehow throughout the course of the show, he gets like, ends up being like, he almost gets that old TV show Quantum Leap. Like he basically quantum leaps throughout time into like, he's like a Jewish guy, then he's like a black guy, and like he has to like live all this horrible fucking shit. And it's to learn, you know, because telling people, we've learned humanity can't respond to just being told something, but experiencing it is very different. And so this game, if nothing else, by your own admission, as you, somebody who came in definitely a little bit more on the fuck them their property point of view than I did, right? Because I've already had this argument many times before that I'm like, like that just seems, you know, if something is close enough to being alive, who am I to fucking, you know, say that they're not? And so if it had the impact on you, it already did what it's supposed to do, right? Which is make you feel something that you maybe weren't prepared to feel, and think about something that maybe you weren't prepared to think about. So that's pretty cool.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to your feelings on the next chapter. If I
Yes,
remember
sir.
it correctly,
Yep.
should be pretty interesting.
So
Will
let's-
not happen tonight, I don't think.
They will
but,
not. One quick thing I was going to do, I'm just going to throw up so everyone, if you're watching it right now, if you're still sticking with us, which kudos to you, thank you for sticking around. The one thing that we did say we were going to throw up is I'm going to just put up the world stats on the decisions that I made. So the only two big things that actually happened, the splits, was I guess listen to Busker must be listening to the music, the musician, right? So 58% of people listened to the guy playing music, and 68% of people had the protesters harass Marcus. So I assume that means it was potential that I could have bypassed that? Is that what that means?
Yeah,
like
I could have walked around them.
I could have gone around them and not gotten bypassed. Oh, wow. That's okay. So that actually would have made that chapter suck, I think, if you just didn't get harassed.
Then you would have been like, okay, this is just a chapter where he was teaching you game mechanics, and then
Right,
that conversation
yeah.
would have been pretty short.
You would have been like, I guess now I know how to pick up paint. Cool. I hope that if that's going to be a regular game mechanic, then this game might suck, but at least I'm going to be awesome at it. But so that's pretty much it. But I definitely missed like 6 things on this list. So
The only
there's
other
a
one
number
I
of things.
got,
Yeah, you said
I was like,
preacher,
I
right?
think I only got 58% total completion, so not much more than you.
Right, you got one more thing than me. Yeah.
Right, watch a preacher preach about like that, and then like there was an option where you could have been like, you could have got into a discussion with him, but I was like, no, he sounds like a crazy person, and I don't think Marcus would want to sit there and argue with like the same dude that's and his knee or whatever.
Right.
So
nice. All right, so I think we are good to go on this one. We have thoroughly we have dissected the 7 minutes of gameplay into over 2 hours worth of conversation, including we talked longer about the beers we were going to drink than I actually played this game. So I'm excited to see what the fuck's going to happen next episode. But so hopefully now that my surprise is out of the bag, that I have the game, the time between this episode and the next one is not going to be nearly as long. We're getting some new episodes up. You will catch some new episodes. Just one just went up yesterday. A brand new episode for us, just in our regular kind of live from the man cave shit. Part 1 with part 2 coming very soon. We have some new stuff happening there, including also our live from the man cave universe shit is coming. Our next episode is going to be happening pretty soon. So we're now at the point where we have a bunch of different projects kind of simultaneously happening. So just keep an eye out on Live from the Man Cave. Keep an eye out in our Discord, which if you're watching this, it's in the chat right here, but you can go to our Live from the Man Cave Discord channel. You'll see pretty much everything that's happening live as it's happening from the man cave, I guess. So you will know as everything's kind of popping up there, but we're trying to diversify and give as many different opportunities for people to be engaged with what we're doing. And really our big thing now, I guess 2018 is like the year of interactivity for us, right, Jess? I mean, we're trying to allow people to interact with us more, so it's not just us throwing shit out to you and then periodically maybe you give us an email back and then we respond to that or something like that. We're trying to have a lot more immediate interactions so that you can let us know exactly what you think and be part of the creation of our content as we move forward. So that's kind of what's happening right now. So keep an eye out for that. Anything else on your end, Jess?
No, sir. Good times as always. Thanks for joining us. Dada gets a really special shout out to you.
Yes.
Definitely make this show so much better just by your participation.
Yeah, for a man who hates it, definitely has a whole lot to say about it, so I appreciate that. So thank you for coming back in, man.
This was worth doing that project, man. It's like we got a guy that dislikes this game and hates the creator, but is willing to like stick around and kind of debate some of these things with us and watch the gameplay.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate that.
So imagine somebody who doesn't hate it. They must be loving this fucking show. So we appreciate it. We will be drinking more next time. And I enjoyed my entire bottle, so I had a great time. Did you enjoy your colleagues?
Yeah, it was good enough.
Yep, there you go.
I mean,
new Live from the Man Cave t-shirt. Yeah, it was good enough. Live from the Man Cave. Hey, man, if that's the best endorsement we can get, I'm down with it. Thank you very much for listening. We will see you guys next time.
I like our listeners like I like my Russian weightlifter women.
All right, I can't deal with it anymore. It's happening. We're going off the rails again. All right, everybody. Peace out. Thank you for coming and checking us out. See you next time. Live from the Man Cave. Awesome. We did now. Yes.